Boy, I have been raring to go today. Sunday cannot come soon enough. Why, hello, how are you? Welcome to the Captain's Cast. You know, it would be easy to point out a Waterloo in the long history of Disney Waterloos, but Loki season 2. Have you seen the ratings news on this? Folks, it ain't looking good. It ain't looking good. It is and you know, I wrote a note to myself in the stack of stuff today saying, you know, we criticize the work, not the humans. And I'm going to tell you more about my perspective on that in just a moment. But this is the Captain's Cast. I am Captain Garrett, your host here on the Swords and Starship channel, and welcome. Join us on our continuing mission to explore strange, new, geeky worlds of entertainment, video gaming, film, media, comics, etc., etc. And there's a lot more to talk about as well. I finished Gen V, and I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to tell you something. How many times am I going to fall for this? How many times am I going to fall for these stupid shows stringing me along? Now, listen, it's not all bad. The season is mostly pretty good. The finale wasn't too bad, but the way they ended it, at first I was like, oh, that's not bad. And then I thought about it. I'm like, God dang it, they did it again. They did it. The mystery box strikes again. So we'll talk about Gen V. And it's not all bad news, but it's the pattern. The pattern is what is driving me crazy. So, hey, did you know there was this movie called The Conjuring? I know you're going to be like, well, the captain's way behind the 8 ball here. I heard people talking about The Conjuring. I'd never seen it. I'm very, very picky with horror movies. Like, as you can tell from my Five Nights at Freddy's review, it's hard to please me as a horror fan, especially if it's a haunted house story, because haunted house stories are probably my favorite of all horror stories. That's probably my absolute favorite. And they're also the hardest to do, I think. They're the hardest to be scary because you can just leave the house. Like, just go stay at a hotel and you'll be fine. Just leave the house, stay at a hotel, problem solved. Or the ghost can't really hurt you, and that is the other thing. So I checked out The Conjuring. Holy shit, folks. These are banger movies. I am all in on the Conjuring universe. I have a lot to say about this, and it is germane to Five Nights at Freddy's. We're going to talk about that. Stack of stuff is loaded for bear today, folks. I have been chomping at the bit to talk to you. So we're going to get to all that. And in the chat, we have Tom. Ahoy, Tom. Hail. Welcome aboard, Tom. And Wrangler in the chat. Wrangler, ahoy. The captain salutes you, sir. Welcome aboard. I saw you over there on A Drink with Crazy. And Frequency Studio Publishing over on the Rumble side is there. I believe that's you, Starfury, isn't it? I'm pretty sure. If so, hail Starfury as well. We are live on YouTube, Rumble, and X, formerly Twitter. I don't know when I'm going to drop the formerly part, but there it is. There it is. So we're going to have some fun today. You want to have some fun? Try this headline. Oh, yep. I got to remember to. There we go. Okay. I have something really interesting. I just stumbled across it just moments. Okay, Wrangler is Frequency Studio. Okay, got it. Okay, that's you, Wrangler. Well, hail Wrangler over in the Rumble chat. Okay, try this headline here. Folks, this is bad news, folks. This from Cosmic Book News. Loki season 2 ratings a catastrophe on Disney Plus, down 60%. The Marvel fans have not returned. Oh, woe betide the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know, Jeremy over there on Geeks and Gamers said something this week, and I know what he meant. But I just found it stunning because he said, I'm so happy to see the destruction of the MCU. And I thought, My God, how sad that is. What a sad, never would I have imagined after that first Avengers film, never would I have imagined being in a situation where I would say that. And I know he didn't either. What he meant was, I'm glad to see the poor, terrible, awful, greedy, soulless work that Disney is turning in that is wrecking everything the MCU built. I'm glad to see that falling apart. I know that's what he meant. It's just sad that, like, the shorthand of that is, I am happy to see the MCU crumbling. And that's what I mean by, we are not here to criticize. Well, at least I'm not. I'll speak just for the captain. I am not here to criticize the process of creation or those creating the work. I am here to criticize the work. And the work is garbage, folks. I can't even, I thought about watching just one episode of this to like warm up for this stream. And you know what I watched instead? I watched a Doctor Who episode, the first episode of the David Tennant run. So how do you like that? I'm getting into Doctor Who, as well as Stargate. There might be some Stargate talk as well. You never know what could happen on the Captain's Cast. But my point is, I couldn't even bring myself to do a minute of Loki. As the article points out, this is definitely not what Marvel needs right now. As it is learned, Loki Season 2 is a big catastrophe on Disney Plus, as the ratings are down nearly 40% from the Season 1 premiere. Okay, so it's down 40% from the Season 1 premiere. It's down 60% from the Season 1 finale. So they have lost 3/5 of their audience from the final episode of Season 1. And this, I would argue Loki is, of all the Marvel Cinematic Universe shows, Loki's probably the rock star of the bunch. I don't think any of their other shows had quite as much interest or enthusiasm. Certainly not Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Certainly not WandaVision. WandaVision started off kind of cool. You know, it kind of had an interesting, oddball take. And that was interesting. But that was not really like a mainline show. Loki was, I think, the one that was the Mandalorian of the MCU. They've lost 60% of their audience. This is from Nielsen. They released the streaming ratings for the week of October 5th, which includes the first episode of Loki Season 2. The Season 2 premiere episode failed to even make the Nielsen's overall top 10 streaming list. The episode did make the top 10 original list, the episode did make the top 10 original list, coming in at number 6. Okay, got it. So they're saying the overall top 10, which is just all TV shows, it didn't even hit the top 10. But in originals, which I believe they mean by this streaming originals, it came in number 6 with 446 million minutes, which also includes any episodes watched that week from Season 1. So a total of 7 episodes. For a comparison, and it's a big one, the Season 1 premiere from June 9th, 2021, clocked in at 731 million viewing minutes in the first week. Though it should be said that the, quote, pandemic was still, I love that they put that in quotes here at Cosmic Book News. I appreciate that. The, quote, pandemic was still happening. That's a loss of 39% when comparing the Season 1 premiere to the Season 2 premiere. Now, this in and of itself might not be the worst thing that's ever happened in the annals of Disney lore, Disney history, but put yourself in their shoes, folks. Put yourself in the shoes of this company. Nothing, listen to me, nothing they do works. Nothing. It's unreal. It's like every single thing they turn out is absolute garbage. Every single show sounds, looks the same corny CGI. That's not. Dude, I was just watching a David Tennant episode, the very first David Tennant episode of Doctor Who. And I'm new to Doctor Who. I'm not a Doctor Who initiate. Well, I guess I'm an initiate, but I'm not a veteran. So I'm learning, right? And I'm Doctor Who aspiring. I'm an aspirant. Now, obviously, it's BBC. It's not like the biggest budget. Star Trek enjoyed probably one of the biggest science fiction budgets. I'm not talking about Kurtzman Trek. Just Star Trek probably had the best science fiction budget for like decades of any science fiction franchise. And looking at Doctor Who, which does not have those kind of massive budgets, and there's some kind of hokey effects here and there, and yet I'm also struck by how creative it is, because this episode was Doctor Who goes into the future. He goes to the year 5 billion, and he's on a planet called New Earth, which is because Earth has been absorbed by the sun at this point in history, so there's a super hyper advanced future version of humans that have they've made a replica of Earth, and they've made a replica of like New York City, but it's super hyper advanced. And so it's really cool. And there's all these kind of hybrid species walking around. And I thought, for all the low budget of some of these effects, it's amazing how creative they are. It's amazing how much they do with so little. And it's amazing how just the storytelling level, there's so much. This is one episode, folks. There's so much going on about, like, there's basically these futuristic nuns who are also a kind of feline species. This is in the year 5 billion. They are running this miraculous hospital that can cure all these diseases, and nobody can explain how they cure all these diseases. Well, it turns out that what they've done is they've just cloned thousands and thousands of just test tube humans, and they're using them. They just inject them with every disease known to man, and they mine them for the cure, right? Which is a very short summary of what's going on. And so there's this whole storyline about the moral cost of this and what is the meaning of life and transferring sentience. And I'm thinking, look at what they were able to do with a few hokey side effects and some costumes. Look at what they're able to do. Of course, channeling Heath. Look what I was able to do to this city with a few drums of gas and some bullets. Isn't it unreal? Star Fury's in the chat. He says, Doctor Who. So anyway, now it was also reported this week that the budget of She-Hulk episodes is 25 million. Is this from, let me grab the headline on this, because I think it was 25 million. You've probably seen this. This article has been on every YouTube channel all week. So if I read it to you, I'd probably bore you to tears, but you know the article. It's the Crisis at Marvel article that came out in Variety, which is notable because it's like the first time that the mainstream media has absolutely gone for the jugular. Look, Marvel and Star Wars failure under Disney is so bad, folks. It's starting to hurt the Wokies' cause. I believe that is why the NPC download has gone out. It is now okay to criticize Disney. And I'm telling you, the reason why is because they don't like it when their ideological cause is being harmed. And this amount of failure is starting to get embarrassing. And so we gotta turn this around. So this is from the Crisis at Marvel. Now, let me just do a quick 25 million. Yeah, there it is. Here it is. So Marvel has been bleeding money with a single episode of She-Hulk costing some $25 million, dwarfing the budget of a final season episode of HBO's Game of Thrones. That, folks, that is unreal. That is unreal. They spent 25. How can you do this? $25 million should be the most they spend on a season. Can you imagine what, like, the David Tennant run Doctor Who creatives? I'm sorry, forgive me. I'm not a Doctor Who guy. Forget the guy who was the showrunner at that time. He's the big name. Star Fury certainly knows it. Imagine what they could do with $25 million for a whole season. It would be amazing. But also, I think of like the Battle of the Bastards. I think of some of the epic things they've shown. The destruction of the Temple of the Seven in King's Landing. Like, I think of some of the set pieces they've had in Game of Thrones, and they were able to do that for less than Disney was able to produce a She-Hulk twerking. Like, how is that even possible? How is these are the, if there were any justice in the world, Disney would be considered a study. They would be a study in business school of bad business. They're terrible at business. This is terrible business. What are you doing? But to be fair, this is what happens when you embrace a culture of essentially affirmative action. Affirmative action meaning, and I'm not just talking about judging people by their, shall we say, immutable characteristics. I'm talking about affirmative action of ideas, right? Disney has decided that certain ideas in storytelling, such as representation, are good ideas for storytelling. They have elevated those ideas without them earning their way to the top. And it has caused them to suffer. Davies, yes, that's the name, Starfield, the showrunner of the celebrated, fated showrunner of Doctor Who. Disney is a failed state. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So I marvel at this. I just marvel at this. I went through this article. I should have grabbed some pull quotes because I don't want to read the whole thing. It's so long. If you want me to, I will. But we got a lot to cover today. But I did love this bit from the article about how this is so funny. I know you've probably seen this making the rounds, but like, where is it? It's the. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. As this is from Variety. This is the article about Crisis at Marvel. As public criticism mounts, Feige is pulling the plug on scripts and projects that aren't working. Case in point, the Blade reboot with Mahershala Ali. And folks, it took me a long time to be able to pronounce that. With Mahershala Ali signed on for the eponymous role of a vampire, things looked promising for a 2023 release date, but the project has gone through at least 5 writers, yet probably not worthy of the title, 2 directors, and 1 shutdown 6 weeks before production. One person familiar with the script permutations says the story at one point morphed into a narrative led by women and filled with life lessons. Oh, no. Oh my! And you know that, like, and this is based on sources and stuff. Tell me right now, do you doubt for a second that is dead on accurate? I don't. I guarantee you, probably 4 of those script permutations had to do with at least 2 women in the plot that were like totally just schooling him on all his toxic vampire masculinity. Blade was relegated to the 4th lead, a bizarre idea, considering that the studio had 2-time Oscar winner Ali on board. Listen, let me explain something, Variety. It's been a bizarre idea for the last 10 years. It's been a bizarre idea since it was conceived as an idea. It's why everything Disney makes is crap. It's why all of it is crap. Can you just imagine, though, being Mahershala Ali? By the way, he's a fantastic actor. Season 1 of True Detective was an absolute tour de force. Season 2 of True Detective was garbage, absolute trash. Season 3 of True Detective kind of it went back to its roots with the first season. I really like season 3 of True Detective, and Mahershala Ali plays the main character in that season. It is worth watching. His performance in that show is excellent. Now, that season's not quite as good as that first season, but it's close, I think. So if you haven't seen if you're a True Detective fan and you missed that 3rd season, check it out. He is an incredible actor, and I think an actor with that much talent, can you just imagine? I am the title character. You morons. Like, what are you doing? Yeah, no, I'm not gonna co-star. I'm not gonna be a guest star in my own film with 4 girl bosses. Just, oh my God, can you just imagine? And this is the other thing. Because of like the rules of the message, he wouldn't have even been able to like be training them. He wouldn't have been able to be like the captain of the team. He would have just been there to like to like watch him girl boss and say stupid lines like I handled it myself. Like I don't need you. Like he's rushing to save one of them, and then she just uses the force or whatever and just kills the vampire and then does, has that SJW smile. I didn't need your help, Blade. I didn't need your help, Blade. That's exactly what it would have been. It's exactly, Regular. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. Well, it's unreal too. It's like Blade is one of the few diverse characters. Like, who gives a shit? But I'm using their language, right? Because this is the world. This is the utopia they're building for us, where we are all obsessed with race all the time. That's the utopia that these wackos are building for us. So to use their parlance, their Orwellian parlance, he's a diverse character that's actually not tokenized. He's an original character. If anyone ever tried to race swap Blade to be like a white guy, the same fans they call racist, would be up in arms. But I would be up in arms about it. I was up in arms about the fact that they cast Charlize Theron to play. Is it Major Kusanagi? I think I called her General Kusanagi from Ghost in the Shell. I think that was ridiculous that they had Charlize Theron playing that character. That should have been a Japanese actor. Anyway, that's beside the point. My point is, their ideas are so bad. The Wokies have the motherload of bad ideas. To quote Sam Harris, they have the motherload of bad ideas. Every idea they have requires you to suspend belief in reality. And they don't want to write. And this is the thing. Now, I've said Gen V is a totally woke show, and it is. And it is the exception that proves the rule that woke storytelling is garbage, because it is clear to me that all of the woke messaging in Gen V is being pushed down just far enough that the story takes precedence. But I'm telling you right now, that is a hell of an effort. Like, it takes effort to keep that, because there's quite a few things in Gen V that are very critical of like the university system, that are very critical of like corporations and so forth. I continue to think in the boys' universe, it's very bizarre how they seem to imagine like the corporate, like the corporate partnership between Vought and the government, the state, as being this kind of ultra conservative, Christian conservative like situation. I'm like, that doesn't in any way track with what we currently have, current day. Anyway, Star Fury, can I be Blade, please? I am a tadpole. No, Star Fury, don't make things up. You are absolutely well. Okay, if you want to identify as a tadpole, just I'll try not to dead name you. He's Starpole now. Fu Man Blue says, "Oh, you're right. I love hearing that, Fu Man Blue. So thank you. I appreciate that." Cause and effect is an istophobous concept. Oh, it's worse than that, Wrangler. Cause and effect is a construct of the white supremacist male patriarchy. So no more of that. Training is misogynistic and racist. It is. Dude, you know what's funny too? It's not even just like in stories where there's like a woman and a man. It's stories where there are women leading women. They don't like go through the same journey of like the Karate Kid, where they've got to train, they've got to learn lessons. They have to, Daniel-san has to figure out, cough button. Daniel-san has to figure out, why does he have to wax on, wax off? Like, what's the purpose of that? I'm here to learn karate. I'm not here to wax cars. And then the wisdom of Miyagi is related to it. You don't even see that in like female-led teams in most movies. They just discover that they were cool all along. That's basically what it is every time. Tad pale, Captain, says Fu Man Blue. Yes. The Captain approves of all memeing. All memeing will be accepted. Okay, I covered that one. Okay, so I tell you that to show you this. Hat tip Chris Gore, because he found this clip, and I love this. This is from 6 years ago, folks. Would you like a lesson on storytelling?
Don't move.
So Matt Stone and Trey Parker spoke at NYU 6 years ago, and this was the result.
Please welcome the Emmy Award-winning and Tony
nervous. I don't know why I'm
creators
nervous.
of South Park, Matt Stone and Trey Parker. You think I'm kidding, right?
Hey!
Dude, I would be going crazy.
Our whole South Park writers room, one whole wall is one of these. And we've got it split up into 3 acts.
We have different colored markers just like here too. Look at we have that.
And I walk around with the markers like this, and we'll go, okay, we do a show about
This is
like,
our writer's room.
oh, okay, well, somewhere, okay, this would be a funny scene if we had
That's
this.
true.
Each individual scene has to work as a kind of funny sketch. You don't want one scene that's just like, well, what was the point of that scene? We found out this really simple rule that maybe you guys have all heard before, but it took us a long time to learn it. But we can take these beats, which are basically the beats of your outline, and if the words "and then" belong between those beats, you're f***ed, basically. You got something pretty boring. What should happen between every beat that you've written down is either the word "therefore" or "but," right? So what I'm saying is that you come.
Dude, this is this is actually pretty basic what they're saying. This is not actually like this is basic. This is like writing 101. However, if you've been wading through all the garbage of Disney Plus lately, this is a revelation. Like, this is groundbreaking stuff, folks. This is like, if it's "and then Ahsoka finds a space whale, and then she sees Ezra, and then Sabine is back, and then Anakin appears and he Vaders, and then and then his lightsaber turns red, and then his lightsaber turns blue, and then his lightsaber turns red again. Well, folks, you're fucked if that's your storytelling. It's like, I can't even, why is this happening? Dear one Lord, why have you forsaken us? And then Nick Fury goes to talk to the Skrull, and then him and his wife kiss it with her in Skrull form, and then he goes to Saber Base. It's like, there's no... Okay, now, the other thing he said there that I really like is each scene has to be, and they're talking about making a comedy show specifically, but I think this applies to outside of comedy as well. It has to be an interesting sketch in and of itself. So they're thinking of each scene is its own interesting comedy sketch. I think that's great. That's hilarious. Well, I actually have this exact same rule with any scene, which is every scene should tell a story. Every chapter in a book should tell a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I that is huge for me. And in fact, whenever I've been like looking like in rewrites, looking at a chapter I wrote and thinking, something's not working here, I'm thinking, okay, let's just forget everything that happened before this chapter and after this chapter. Let's just look at this chapter. Is a story being told here? Is a story being told in which change has occurred? That's the key. Something has to change from the beginning of that first line to the end. Now, it's not actually that complicated when you think of it that way, because you just realize that like you're telling a mini story, which is part of a larger story, which itself is part of a larger story, each with its own beginning, middle, and end. I look at individual dialogues this way. Every conversation between characters, every single one, no exceptions, folks, like zero, no exceptions, must tell a story from beginning to middle to end. And something in that conversation must have created change in the story. Now, it could be something very, very slight. It's not going to be anything like super over the top dramatic, but even just a character realizing that they didn't understand something about that other person before the conversation. I'll give you an example. One Piece, okay? There's a great scene in which Zoro and Nami are having drinks, and they challenge each other to drinks. And they basically say, I'll try and guess something about your past, and if I'm right, you have to drink, and if I'm wrong, I have to drink, right? And that's the deal. So they kind of take turns, And so she says, you never had any friends as a kid. And he says, drink. So she has to drink. And he says, I had one friend, right? The point is, at the beginning of that scene, she thought that Zorro was the kind of guy that's, you know, he's got such a stick up his ass. He's never had friends ever. And by the end of that scene, she learned there's more to him than meets the eye. More than meets the eye. Yeah, there is a person, there is a sense of loss and tragedy in his life that she picks up on, right? That's a story. A story has just been told in that conversation. And there's more to that conversation than even that. So these 2 points he just highlighted are absolutely crucial. And I just think, you know, this room should be every Disney writer ever. Jeff Loveness, who wrote Quantum Nausea, should be in this room, and he should be locked in for 9 months minimum before he's allowed to write anything else again.
Come up with an idea, and it's like, okay, this happens, right? And then this happens. No. It should be this happens, and therefore this happens. But this happens, therefore this happens. And that, as soon as we are able to, and literally sometimes we'll write it out to make sure we're doing it. We'll have our beats, and we'll say, okay, this happened, but then this happens, and that affects this, and that does to that. And that's why you get a show that feels like, okay, this to that, to this to that, but this, here's the complication to that. And there's so many scripts we read from new writers and things that we see.
God, I see movies.
And
you see movies that you're just watching. It's like, this happened, and then this happens, and then this happens. That's when you're in a movie just going, what the f am I watching this movie for? Just like, this happened, and then this happened, and this happened. That's not a movie, you know, that's not a story. Like Trey said, it's those two, but because, therefore, that gives you the causation between each beat, and that makes that's a story.
Yeah.
Dude, that is just... It's amazing how simple. It's not easy. It's not easy, but it is very simple. And and this is, you know, guys like Mahler that are hated, that are hated by the shills. It's like, that's all they're saying. That's all they're saying. This character has this attitude, therefore this should happen. Or because this happened instead, but that happened, it caused a complication. That's all they're asking for. They're just asking for the character's actions to flow naturally out of their character and the events that occur. Star Fury says, woke Whammon's journey. I am a woman. I am brilliant. I am even more brilliant than any white man. I win just because. The end. I win because I'm a Whammon. Well, apparently that's how women want to be seen when they're represented on screen. They want to be seen as not having to earn anything. Okay, cool. Or as Regular puts it, the woke hero's journey is discovering one's own plot armor. And what a journey that can be. What a journey that can be. Shout out Mahler, says Fu Man Blue. The surgeon, as I call him. So, and then we had Chris Gore had some thoughts on this video we just watched, so I'll pull that up for you.
You probably know Vistaprint for business cards, but
I jumped the gun there.
Hey, sorry. I was just gonna say, like, that describes modern writing. The problem. This is Ahsoka. This happens, then this happens, then this happens. It's not therefore or but. Like it's things have to get more complex rather than this. I feel like a lot of the Disney current Marvel and current Star Wars are just, they're like a bad video game. So you're on a quest to find a thing, to do a thing, and so what?
Well, yeah. Well, that's why I describe these shows as, you know, you go out in your backyard, you take all your toys, and you tell a story with your toys. You know, it's, you know, they're just objects you move around on stage, and it just progresses some kind of a narrative, some kind of an adventure that really has no weight to it. What Trey and Matt are bringing up here is the idea of everything that you put on screen has value, must have value, must mean something. And then the scene that preceded it has to, you know, lead to the next scene. there has to be consequences to what you just put on screen in the next scene. Otherwise, you're just wasting time. You're wasting our time.
Right.
And you're not engaging the audience that way. You're not making the audience want to know what's going to happen next. And I think that's exactly what they're trying to say here.
That's precisely it. So I just wanted to show that because I think it ties into almost everything we discuss. If we're a very critical, this is why we're critical. We're going to put a link to that video in the description for this episode. So
100%. Ing the Merciless. And Gore had a point. I want to remind myself of it because I had a point about that. What was he saying?
Of the Disney current Marvel and current Star Wars are just, they're like a bad video game.
There it is. Yeah, that was his point. Because he said that, and he's right in the sense that they are writing fetch quests. Like Mandalorian is the worst example of this, I think. It's like literally just a video game fetch quest. But it's actually worse than that because I've played a lot of video games. This is a mechanic in video games. It's just part of how video game storytelling has to work since it's a different kind of medium. But I'm going to tell you something. It is a fool that thinks that there isn't the same exact necessary levels of talent involved in telling a compelling and engaging video game story, because my favorite video game franchise of all time is, of course, Mass Effect, the Mass Effect trilogy. And what's interesting about that is every mission in Mass Effect is essentially, it's a fetch quest. Shepard has to go achieve an objective. But what's interesting about Mass Effect is I'm serious about it, it's like a good Star Trek story, or it's like a good Doctor Who story. In the middle of completing that mission, Shepard encounters but then there is a moral complication that makes the objective that Shepard wants to achieve now have a deeper cost or a deeper meaning for the galaxy. And then you as the player get put on the spot because you as the player now have to decide, well, should I continue the original objective or should I do a perfect example? One of my favorite missions is Zaid's loyalty mission. So you get the character, he's a mercenary in Mass Effect 2. You recruit him onto your team and he says, I got this little job you've got to complete for me. The bastard who shot me in the head and stole my mercenary company, he's got it coming, and I want revenge on him. He doesn't exactly tell you that in the beginning. That's actually something that's revealed on the mission. But the point is, he says, I got to take this guy out, and the deal is I help you if you help me. So you go on the mission, and the mission is very simple. This guy has it coming, and Zaid wants revenge, and he needs Shepard's help to get revenge. Okay, cool. About a third of the way through the mission, Zaid it's at a fuel refinery. He damages the fuel refinery and causes a massive fire. Well, there's a bunch of slave labor that is in the refinery that are now trapped, and they're all going to burn to death. Now, Shepard's mission is just get this guy on board at all costs. But now you as the player are on the spot because you have a choice. Do you save the lives of the refinery and lose Zaid's loyalty, or do you get Zaid's loyalty and watch all these people die? And let me tell you something. I've played it both ways because I usually play as a renegade, actually. So I usually do let them burn. But I'm going to tell you something. That game punishes you for choosing that because you have to listen to them screaming and begging to get out. It's so bad. But my point is, these stupid Disney writers couldn't even write that, because they would have just wrote it as it's just a fetch quest. Just go get the thing. And it's like, no, it's not just go get the thing. Now it's, do I let all these people burn to death, or do I do the right thing and lose my objective? That's great storytelling, folks. That's amazing immersive storytelling. It's why Mass Effect and a lot of games like it are so magical to play, because you didn't see that coming. You just did not see it coming, that you were going to have to make this incredibly difficult. And that's a pretty easy one. But there are some decisions in Mass Effect that are very difficult to make. And it's not easy to decide which path you want to take. So, and Dragon Age does this. And to some extent, like Skyrim and other games like that have those qualities. So even to say that fetch questing is video game storytelling, well, yeah, as sort of a basic level, but good video game writers know how to turn a fetch quest into an emotional, character-driven moral tale. That's not easy to do, folks. It takes chops. You got to have chops. Oh, yes, of course. Picking a famous example there, Starfury says, the Rachni. Do I commit genocide or risk letting them live? Yes. I think I read some article on Mass Effect that said, as Shepard, you kind of are presented with multiple choices of casual genocide. And I'm like, casual genocide? Well, look, you have a decision to make, okay? It's not easy. I always let the Rachni live, which is really bad. It's a really bad decision, but I always let them live. Oh, yes. Fuban Blue, I was so into Mass Effect 3. Yes, the ending, notwithstanding, the extended cut fixes a lot of the problems, but yes, despite the flaws of the ending, Mass Effect 3 is itself a really good ending, and with all the DLC, it's just brilliant. Like the Citadel DLC is one of the best things that they ever did in that franchise. I always cure the Krogan. Even my Renegade Shepard cures the Krogan. Because the way I play, this is the only way I can play a Renegade. So here's the mentality of my Renegade Shepard. And I played first as a Paragon, and I just played as the standard male Shepard. But then I wanted to just change it up. So I played as a Renegade, and I thought, I'll play as the chick this time. Well, she wound up becoming my favorite character because I just like the Renegade decisions. And so anyway, so I wind up playing as the Renegade FemShep. And the way I play it is, she is an absolute... You know what? Actually, I modeled her after Admiral Kane in Battlestar Galactica because I loved that character of Admiral Kane because she seems like she's a ruthless SOB on the surface, but below that, there's like reasons, And so my idea is that she's just ruthless as hell, but when it comes to her crew, she has a soft spot. And so because Rex was on her crew, she's going to sabotage it right up until the moment where she has the chance to shoot Morden, and then she just throws the gun away. And I that's my favorite resolution, is that she was going to sabotage the cure, but she just couldn't bring herself to do it. And she hates herself for it because she's got a soft spot. So the captain puts a lot of headcanon into his characters, okay? Fuman Blue says, I've always enjoyed a decent story in a game, but I don't really give a damn, so the ending didn't bother me. The game played spectacularly. It really did. There was a couple mechanics from Mass Effect 2 that they ditched in 3 that I was not happy about. Like, I think you can't holster your weapon in Mass Effect 3, which is kind of annoying, but they did add quick save, and I love that quick save. Starfury says, I get to be a good guy, in theory, at least in a game. Starfury, you are nothing if not a good guy. I know that. I love Starfury says, I am always a Paragon, so I have to save everyone. So you're playing against type. No, I'm just kidding. So, oh man, Mass Effect is such a journey. And the funniest thing about it too, I remember I had just gotten an Xbox 360 and I was asking a buddy of mine, okay, I need some games. Can you recommend some games? And so we were going through a GameStop and we were just looking at the used game shelf, and he pulled BioShock off the shelf and handed it to me. And then he pulled Mass Effect off the shelf and handed it to me. And he said, here's 2 really good ones. And I said, these look good. I'll go with those. And I tried Mass Effect first, actually, because I'm a giant Trek fan. And I did like the Eden Prime mission. But then when I got to like the Citadel, and it was all a bunch of diplomatic stuff, and I was super confused about like, okay, when do I actually go on adventures? And I got bored with it, and I put it down. And then I played BioShock, which is one of the best games of all time. It is just incredible. I absolutely love the City of Rapture. So I played that whole thing. But then I went back to BioShock or to Mass Effect, and I kind of just, I did the grinding. I just grinded to get through the Citadel. But the funny thing is, then I kind of started to fall in love with it because I'm like, oh, I'm talking to all these cool aliens. I'm asking about their culture. I'm like intervening in their little problems, and it started to feel like I was in an episode of Star Trek, but like a cool episode where they actually have like combat and stuff. And I thought, this is like Star Trek with an edge to it, which is actually a lot of fun. And then I got into the main story and the Reapers, and oh my God, it's so good. It was so good. And then I was hooked. And then Mass Effect 2 came out, and it was like being Jack Bauer in space. And it was like, that was all she wrote. That was all she wrote. It's like, I've played those games like 100 times. I really have. And Mass Effect Andromeda, I really liked a lot. I actually thought it was the gameplay and the world were glorious. Absolutely glorious. I enjoyed the concept of being the explorer, trying to settle these worlds. Unfortunately, what really killed Andromeda was it just had a really bland, uncharacteristically bland story. Like, if you look at the villain of Andromeda, he's an incredibly uninteresting villain. He's just a megalomaniac who just wants to take over the galaxy. That's it. And when you look back at all the elusive man, you look at, what's a Saren? You look at those, and even the Reapers themselves, they have such complex and interesting motivations, and they have such interesting arguments to make to you, the main character. Then you get to Andromeda, and all you're dealing with is a mustache-twirling one-dimensional villain. And it's like, it absolutely destroys what could have been, I think, a really good game. Also, just take the hit, BioWare, and just get back to the Milky Way and just select a canon ending, move it 300 years into the future, and you're good. I think we should just go 300 years. And Dragon Age also, Dragon Age Origins, we've swerved into video game talk, which I am here for. Dragon Age Origins is a masterpiece. I love that game. I absolutely love it. And I think it's the best of the series. It really is. And I think that they should have just stayed with that model. I think that is the model. And actually, I just read an article that like someone from BioWare has kind of said they want to get back to Dragon Age started to become too Mass Effect is basically the problem. They started to make Dragon Age more like Mass Effect, and they should have just said, no. Dragon Age is more like our Baldur's Gate fantasy kind of thing, and we just stay with that. And but Dragon Age 2, I like the story, and I actually enjoy playing Dragon Age 2, but it is definitely the weakest entry. Even so, the atmosphere in Dragon Age 2 is really brilliant. Like the atmosphere of Kirkwall, to this day, it kind of haunts me. It's like this cursed city full of blood magic. I just love that. But Dragon Age Inquisition is the most epic. Like it is the main story of Dragon Age Inquisition is my favorite. It's actually my favorite storyline of the series because it is absolutely magnificent. The problem with Dragon Age Inquisition is it is way too massive. There is way too much territory in that game. They went way overboard. You basically have the main quest done in like 15 hours. In like 15 hours of gameplay, your main quest is done in Dragon Age Inquisition. And what are you left with? Fetch quests. And most of them are. There's way too many quests in Dragon Age Inquisition that are just monotonous. Like, oh, this villager lost their such and such. Go fight, go explore for 10 hours and slaughter all these enemies to bring back a thing. And they don't even give you like a face-to-face dialogue. It's just like, you just see Melodic Method is in and bring back Shepard. Well, you know what? Actually, you know what? I'm okay with that, Star Fury. I'm okay with that because the ending I always did in Mass Effect is I like when I do my Renegade playthrough, always choose the destroy ending because look, that was where it was going from the beginning for her. It's like just the way she looks at the world is like the Reapers are going down. I don't care what it costs. And she has the Earthborn and the Soul Survivor background. So my whole idea with her is she is just a survivor. Like she just survived. So I love that ending that like you get Shepard surviving at the end. So I think that's my main criticism of the Mass Effect 3 ending is I think that they pigeonholed you into too many. I just think they jumped the shark with that because they should have made it so that there is a version of the ending where you live happily ever after. They just should have. And that was their mistake. Like, in order to do the destroy ending, you have to kill Edie. I hate that. And you have to kill the Geth. I hate that. I really do. Melodic Method says those Dragon Age mega hands always wigged me out. Mega hands? What? I'm not even sure what you're talking about there. Mega hands? You have to tell me more about. Are you sure you're not talking about Elden Ring? Hail, brothers and sisters. Hail, Melodic Method. Welcome aboard. Their hands were huge. Are the characters? I didn't notice that. I was playing on Xbox, so maybe I'm not as good at zooming in. What else we got in the stack of stuff? Because we got lots. We should probably talk about the Gen V finale. Also, okay, now spoilers for Friday, Five Nights. I keep saying Friday night. Why the hell am I doing that? Five Nights at Freddy's. Okay, quick spoiler. Okay, spoiler alert. Five Nights, because I didn't get to say this on my last stream, but now I want to. This is why I think the movie falls apart. You ready for this? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Abby becomes friends with all the Five Nights at Freddy's critters at the end. But not even at the end. She just becomes their buddies in Act 3. Now, yes, I know that they want her soul or some such, which is not at all clear. It's very convoluted and complicated. But the basic idea is they wind up as the allies who beat the bad guy at the end. And I thought that is awful. That is just awful because it means that I just kind of like these critters now, and I'm not supposed to like them. I'm supposed to be afraid of them. I'm supposed to want to run from them. So maybe I just don't understand the lore. I don't know if that's the lore in the video game or what, but if so, that's I don't like that. So anyway. Okay, what else I got on tap for you? I came across this apropos of nothing, and I wanted to share it with you. So now I don't follow this guy. Look, I'm kind of late to the YouTube game. I sort of discovered Critical Drinker a couple of years ago, and then I fell down the rabbit hole, and now here I am, my dear sailors and Starnauts. Isn't it? It's so good to see you. Please like and subscribe. We are live on YouTube, Rumble, and X, formerly Twitter. So Star Wars theory is this guy, and I don't know, I have not followed his channel for a long time, but I have a basic idea that he's like one of the biggest names, 3.3 million subscribers. He's one of the biggest YouTube Star Wars fans out there, massive channel. And he's been doing this for years. Okay. Now you might be inclined to call him a shill. I don't know. I certainly wouldn't based on this video, but this is what I would say. I would say, here's a guy who loves Star Wars. He's been a lifelong fan, just my opinion, lifelong fan. And it's very difficult when you've been a fan of something for that long to admit that it's been destroyed. Hello, Star Trek. I had friends of mine were telling me how bad Discovery was in the first, and believe me, there was a lot about it that I knew right off the bat was bad. But see, in the first season of Discovery, I still had hope, right? I still had hope. And that was my mistake. So this I found kind of stunning.
Why Star Wars is in such a state where no one is interested anymore. Nobody gives a crap.
We would be honored if you would join us.
The Kenobi show, is a show that we had been waiting for, arguably. No, not, you know what? Screw arguably. It was the most important show that Star Wars could ever have released after George sold it to Disney. We got Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi in between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. We got Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, as well as Luke Skywalker and Leia. Literally the main characters of Star Wars, the most important part, time, everything. And what kind of a budget does it get? It gets not even less than Andor, which I think had like 130 million or 110 million or maybe even more than that. What was the budget for Andor? Hold on here before I can get ahead of myself. You guys are going to see such a more real side of me as we push into 2024 because I'm fed up. I'm really tired. I'm really fed up. People that don't like me already don't like
Does this mean that we've not been seeing a real side of you? I'm just asking.
me. People that love me already love me, and I'm here for you guys, and I'm not here for anyone else. At the end of the day, I'm here for George Lucas. I'm here for Star Wars. I'm here for myself and what Star Wars used to be. Let's get a few things out of the way. Not everything that Disney has created is total garbage. Maybe, 80, 90%. But there is that 10% that is actually really amazing. Mandalorian Season 1 and 2, Tales of the Jedi, The Clone Wars Season 7, Rebels, Ahsoka up until episode 7 and
Oh my God. He almost had me there for a minute. I'm like, okay, he named a couple things, like the final season of Clone Wars is pretty good. In fact, I would say it was Ahsoka's best storyline moment ever, was that last season of Clone Wars, which is partly why I hate the Ahsoka live action so much, because the character in the cartoon was 1,000 times more interesting and animated and had, personality. But Rogue One was really good. I think you had, I'm pretty much with him on Mandalorian Season 1 and 2. I think Season 2 had more filler, but it also had some other episodes that were really good, like the Gina Carano sniper episode was freaking fantastic. And if you take that in isolation, Luke's return in its full glory might look like a course correction. And when it looked like a course correction, I was with it. I liked it. Still a Deus Ex Machina at the end, but the captain will allow it if I'm getting back Luke Skywalker, but it turns out we're not. So the captain will disallow it. But then he has to go and say that he liked Ahsoka. What are you talking about? It's like, nobody who has a lick of sense, or just how can you anyway? Andor, I pretty much agree with him on Andor. He's like,
an 8. But what I'm trying to say is, not everything that has been created under Disney's umbrella was garbage. Now, mind you, those things were created by Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. But I digress. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the most important Star Wars project since Disney purchased Lucasfilm from George Lucas in 2012. And it gets the lowest budget of any Star Wars show to date. She-Hulk gets a better budget than Obi-Wan? Freaking She-Hulk. I mean, what the hell, man? Like, who is making these decisions up there? I'm sorry to make this kind of video, dude, but honestly, who is making those decisions up there? You wonder why Star Wars is in such a state where no one is interested anymore. Nobody gives a crap. It's because of shit like this. And you know what? The budget wasn't even the biggest problem of the show. You have fan films. You have fan fictions that have no budget, that have like the budget of an internet connection and a computer, that honestly garner more attention and love than the garbage writing and directing that flew into the Kenobi show. You have the most important characters in Star Wars. Not only that, you're bringing back Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor. Forget Jimmy Smits, everybody else. You're bringing back the goats, okay? The original, the prequel trilogy. The OGs, man. The OGs from the prequels, okay? And you not only, give a crap script, you get people that don't know what the hell they're doing when it comes to writing the stories and the characters that George built and created.
With great respect, Mr. Theory. With great respect. How do you think we wound up with that much garbage in the first place? While you were spending, not you personally, but while guys like you with massive followings were spending years just meat riding Disney, what and happily standing by, politely standing by, while valid criticisms were labeled as racist and misogynistic and bigoted and toxic. While all that was happening, right? The biggest followings were happy to allow this to continue without any valid criticism. How different might things be if guys like you had added those criticisms years earlier? I just kind of marvel. It's like, well, where have you been? Where have you been? This is not rocket science. This is, I remember when I first realized that Kurtzman Trek was cancer to Star Trek. I mean, that was really my red pill, where it was like, okay, I'm not going to be snookered by this crap anymore. It didn't take too long. I mean, once it was like okay, this is how every single one of these is going to be. This is, one Picard was really pretty much when it was clear that there's nothing they're ever going to make. There's just nothing they're ever going to make that's going to be good. And yet there might be the odd scene or the odd this or that that's kind of interesting or cool, but that does not a good series make. That does not the lore honor. That does not the legacy characters preserve. And I just could never allow myself to just see the good side of that. There is no good side of that. This is garbage work that these massive companies are turning in. They do not deserve the benefit of the doubt. They do not deserve undue praise any more than they deserve undue criticism. The burden of proof is on Disney. The burden of proof is on Kurtzman. The burden of proof is on Director X. Okay? You as the creator, the burden of proof is on you that your work is any good. It's not on us, the fans. It's not on us, the fans. We are the customers. We owe you nothing. We owe these companies nothing. And they seem to think we owe them something. This is why the whole diversity representation argument is such garbage, because this is the only argument in the history of all artistic creativity and professionalism. This is the only argument that has ever allowed the creative to switch roles with the audience and basically say, okay, you are here to watch my stuff and praise it because it has representation and diversity in it. And the burden of proof is on you to tell me why it's bad. Because if you tell me it's bad and there's, I don't know, a lesbian in it, a woman of color,
Put a tick in it, make her gay. Fuck Indiana Jones, put a tick in it and make her lame and gay.
And if she's lame and gay and you don't like her, then the burden of proof is on you, audience. It's on you to prove why you're not a racist, why you're not a homophobe. This is why we've wound up where we're at. So while guys like Star Wars Theory, whether directly or indirectly, we're standing by, allowing the lies to be laundered through the media and allowing their fellow fans to be labeled as racist and toxic and cowering in fear rather than standing up to it. They were enabling all of this behavior for years. And now Star Wars Theory wants to come clean. He wants to talk about the bad state of Star Wars. Well, all I have to say to that is, sir, if you had woken up a little sooner and been a little more honest and held their feet to the fire, maybe if more guys like you had done that, they would have course corrected sooner and we wouldn't have the garbage we have. And I'm sorry. The fact that he is still willing to say that Ahsoka was good up until episode 4, dude, fuck off. Like, fuck off with that. That first episode, nothing happened in 8 episodes. It's like, and I'm going to tell you something. I think this one pissed me off more than almost anything Disney's ever made because I love Ahsoka. Not really. Just because I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe it's the straw that broke the camel's back. Maybe it was just, I can't watch Loki, so that could be it. But I think the problem with it is it's the same thing I mentioned before. It's so much in terms of resources, and they do so little with it. There actually are so many interesting stories you could tell with an Ahsoka. And I was even just thinking about, you could have had Hera getting a nice little a scene where she's getting like a hologram of Han Solo giving her orders because he's the general of the fleet. That would be cool. If like Han Solo's the admiral, like in that What If Star Wars Were Good. So there were things, he's not going to have a big role, but it's just like we get a sense from afar of what the heavies are doing in the galaxy. And then we have a story that's a little smaller scale for Ahsoka and Hera. And there's a lot you could do with that. But what am I watching? I'm watching. Do you know when Ahsoka is training Sabine, she doesn't mention the word force like once. There might be one little scene sort of at the end, but she almost never, like, there's a whole scene where she has Sabine blindfolded, which is one of the dumbest sensei student training scenes ever. But quite aside from that, she's blindfolded. She's saying not everything is in your, not all sense is from your eyes or something like that. And I'm like, why aren't you talking about the Force? Why aren't you talking about reaching out with the Force? Anyway. So I just think that Star Wars Theory, I appreciate that he has woken up to the reality. He's about 2 years. He's 2 years late and $1 short. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. And I saw some great comments in the chat too. I wanted to highlight. Wrangler says, why does it seem like all these commentators have been wanting to say these things, but needed permission from Variety first? I think there's a couple of things in play here. And I don't know. I could be wrong about Star Wars Theory. Maybe he's been better at this. I just get the sense. Nah. I to be fair, I haven't seen a lot of his videos, so that totally on me. However, the fact that he's still willing to praise Ahsoka, that's a big red flag. That gives me a very low opinion of his opinion. I'm just going to tell you right now. And I'm speaking of his work, not him personally. I just don't agree with that take at all. So there's a couple of things going on. Number one, I think you cannot make the argument that there is such a thing as toxic fandom without enslaving yourself to that very same dynamic. Because if you are willing to buy into the argument and either collaborate with this argument, with this manipulative, cynical argument, if you are willing to throw in your lot with that, either by silently standing by or by agreeing with it, or even worse, attacking your own fellow fans on Twitter, well, then you've made your bed. Because now the minute that you see something you dislike, here, take your lightsaber. Oh, what? Wait, what? Why would he take his lightsaber? No, I don't want my lightsaber. And now it's like, but still good, because they know, folks. They know that they've thrown their lot in with there's such a thing as fans and there's such a thing as toxic fans. It's like, no, Henry Cavill had it right. Fans are fans. Fans have a right to I just underline that word, any opinion that they want to have. That's it. I'm sure there was a guy in the crowd at the Globe Theater when Shakespeare was being performed, and he was like, this is shit, man. This guy sucks. And he just walked out of the Globe Theater. He ain't going to amount to nothing. Well, that fan in the 1600s had as much right to his opinion as all of the snooty professors today who think Macbeth is the greatest play ever, of which I count myself one. Maybe, the Scottish play. That fan had just as much right to hate Shakespeare in the 1600s as we have to love Shakespeare for 500 years later. So that's number one. They've cast their lot with the divisive crowd, and they've decided that people are not allowed to disagree with them. So that's number one. Number two, there's a little bit of pressure. He's got a 3 million subscriber audience, and that audience, I presume, has been built mostly on positive feelings about Star Wars. And to be fair, look, if I had a channel with 3 million subscribers and it was all about talking about how much I love Star Trek and how good it was and how great it was, and that was what people came to see, and then one day it's like all I'm talking about is how awful it is, how terrible it is, how depressing it is, I could understand my audience not enjoying that and being like, look, I come here because I want to talk. It's like, look, I'd love to tell you that Star Trek is good, but they tore out Echeb's eyeball, okay? Like, I can't live with that. So this is, I think that's part of it, is he's a little bit afraid of disappointing his audience because they want to feel good. And that is the most sympathetic you will ever hear the captain towards this mentality, because I understand that feeling of like, I don't want to hear how bad Star Trek is. I want to hear that Star Trek is great and that Picard is great. Look, the most fun I've had in a long time with Star Trek was Picard season 3. That was a wonderful gift, and I will always be grateful for it. And I wish Terry Matalas could just run a Jack Crusher series. I think it would be freaking awesome if they just gave that to Terry Matalas and just let him do whatever he wanted. It's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. You know, so I understand the audience and I understand Star Wars Theory not wanting to admit that Star Wars is dead. I don't want to admit that. I don't want that to be true. It just is true. I'm sorry. Like, there's nothing I can do about it. At least not yet. One day. But that is a conversation for another time. Now, what else, Wrangler? Finally, and I don't know if this applies to Star Wars Theory. I won't presume to speak on him specifically, but I do think it applies to a lot of these shills, is they have also thrown their lot in with the message. And they are a little bit afraid of crossing the message crowd, and they should be. They should be. They should be scared shitless, because these are Stalinistic, fascistic freaks that will do horrible things to big content creators with big audiences that cross them. So I understand that. You know, it's like, so there you go. I think those are my main opinions on that, but I'm happy to hear your thoughts as well, because they're all weak-willed NPCs fundamentally. A lot of them. Anyone who's sitting there saying like, "Oh, his lightsaber turned red," come on, dude. It's like, now there is an alternate reality in which that meeting of Ahsoka and Anakin was epic and awesome, and it could have had all the same visual elements. You know, it's like, but the fact that they are not willing to ask that of the they just want to believe that, okay, Anakin is back and it's so great. It's like, but why didn't she ask about Luke? But what did he teach her? What is even Ahsoka's motivation in that whole scene? Do you realize this, folks? I don't even understand what her motivation is from beginning to end in that entire series. What does she want? What is missing in her life? What has she been doing all this time? I thought she was on some planet hunting some chick. She was kind of like going all Ronin. Why is she now shacked up with the Ghost crew? That none of the. This is my point. It's like they're not willing to ask any of this. And so, yes, that is NPC mentality. It's like, just give me content. Oh no, why did I do that? I shouldn't have done that. But hey, listen. Oh, yes. I just want to see a pilot with the heart of a pilot who's always dressed to pilot. Do we need 80s Ahsoka? Let me know if we need 80s Ahsoka. I think they're confusing activists for fans and fans for review bombers. You know, I don't take a dim view of review bombers. Would I like it to happen? No. To my work, certainly not. But on the other hand, it's my opinion is, if you don't like the idea of an open source opinion, open source reviews, I mean, that's really what audience reviews are. Okay. Audience reviews are an open source review. Well, I'm going to tell you something that is not pleasant for people who want to consolidate their power and want to maintain control of the narrative. And so, of course, these companies hate audience reviews. The critics hate audience reviews. They don't want to compete with the audience. The audience, they have not had the proper critical training. They are not part of the approved intellectual class. They do not have the appropriate attitudes to deliver a nuanced opinion. So it's a challenge to their authority, and that is why they don't want audience reviews. And so my view is review bombing, just I don't agree with the whole concept. To me, I just think if you have a platform and that platform is infested with bots that are doing all that kind of shit, that's the problem of the platform. But if audience members who are passionate about something sucking, and they're like, I want to go, you know, I just want to go vent my rage at this franchise. I haven't even watched it. I just want to vent my rage at it. I'm like, I say allow all of it, because that is allowing the people to have their say. And let's just face it, that's the way audiences have been since the dawn of time. Why do they call it the peanut gallery? They call it the peanut gallery because back in the days of like theater and theater performances, they would have the cheap seats were basically the gallery, which was right below the stage, and it was standing. It was just standing only. There's no chairs. And the typical concession was peanuts. And so if the cheap seat crowd did not like what they were seeing, they would throw peanuts at the cast. That's the peanut gallery. Now, you can say, I think throwing peanuts is rude and unprofessional, and that should not be allowed. It's like, but it is an audience reaction. That is an audience reaction, is I want to throw a peanut at you. So I view review bombing as the same thing. It's throwing peanuts. It's throwing peanuts, or to go to an older metaphor, it's throwing rotten fruit. It is basically saying, screw you, I don't like what you do. Oh, but you have not watched all 8 episodes of Robin Hood. How can you do that to me? It's like, because I have peanuts and I wish to throw them at you. That's what, and I think that's valid, is my point. I think that is valid, and I would rather have that than have no audience reviews allowed and just have to rely on the approved, snooty, intellectual class that has the proper pedigree for film critique. Screw that. Give me the audience anytime. Melodic says, always need 80s Ahsoka. Dude, I'm telling you right now, and this is not a joke. I really think, as dumb as they are, the character traits that they list to actually make it more interesting, because it's like she's a pilot with the heart of a pilot who's dressed a pilot. I think that's great, because I think it implies that, hey, she's a general. She doesn't really like being a general. She just wants to pilot. That's more interesting to me than her going around and saying, did you know I'm a general? Did you know I'm a general? There's nothing classified for me. Why are you a general? What are you a general of? She gets 3 in like 1 engagement. She disobeys orders. She does whatever she wants. She tells senators to fuck off. Why are senators in control of the military? I don't know. Neither do they. And that they just, I mean, like directly commanding the military. That's a very bizarre dynamic, I think. And then she just gets X-Wings killed. Faces no consequences for that. You know, do you know? You know this, my dear sailors and Starnauts, because you're here. Because you're here on the Captain's Cast on the Swords and Starships channel. So you know these sorts of things. But like the idiot writers of Ahsoka don't know these kinds of things, right? Which is any captain of a ship, if that ship is destroyed in combat or even just loses in combat, surrenders, sinks, whatever, no matter the circumstances, that captain must face a court-martial. Now, why? Why? Because that captain must be accountable for the loss of that ship. And yes, the court-martial may find that they acted with distinction and courage, that there was nothing they could have done, the ship was lost and it went down. Nevertheless, they must face that court-martial because they are responsible for the loss of that ship. So to me, the idea of Hera getting 2 X-Wings killed, and who cares? Just who cares? She goes back to the Senate. No one even asks a question. 2 men have lost their lives, and she is not accountable for that. These people don't understand maritime structure. They don't understand military structure, and nor do they care. Nor do they care. Let me just see if I can grab this for you. Captain is on one today. I would watch this show because it reminds me of when I was a kid and I would watch MacGyver, or I would watch there was that live action Flash show, Quantum Leap, all these classic shows. Yeah, let me skip the ad. Here we go. For you, my dear audience, Hat Tip Prism, Ahsoka 1986 intro.
Ahsoka Tano, mystical Jedi warrior,
trained to be a child soldier by the master of evil. She must learn to walk her own path while maintaining order in the galaxy.
It never gets old.
Ahsoka, a Jedi who fights against the forces of darkness using her twin lightsabers and incredible never-before-seen abilities. Water breathing, whale song, and quick change. Joined by a ragtag band of friends, they journey into the unknown. Sabine, Mandalorian warrior, explosives expert, hopeless Jedi, street artist. Hera, a pilot with the heart of a pilot, who is always dressed to pilot. And Hu Yang, Ahsoka's faithful servant, a 25,000-year-old robot that possesses more knowledge and experience than any other living being in the entire galaxy. Possibly the most valuable relic in all of existence. He is now responsible for ship maintenance. With the threat of a new Star War looming over them, they wrestle against the intangible genius of Grand Admiral Thrawn and his supernatural minions.
Yes!
It's a race to save one of the last Jedis, as one of the last Jedis is hunted by the last remnants of the Jedis. They must learn to put aside their differences, reconcile with their pasts, and risk it all to find a long-lost ally who may or may not be able to help them. But hope always remains in Ahsoka.
It's perfection, folks. It's been at least a week since I saw that. So I'm so into it again. I'm just like, dude, there is more storytelling in that cheesy 80s intro than there was in that whole damn show. I'm telling you right now. I love how off-brand it is. It's so fun. Like, as a new Star War looms. I know. And also the backhanded compliments to all the, like, as they wrestle with the intangible genius of intangible. What does that mean? And so, and his supernatural, dude, they basically identified that this is like pure Buck Rogers camp, is what this is. This is like, oh, that's so fun. Dude, if you had given that exact ensemble of characters to Joss Whedon, what do you think he would have made? I think he would have made a damn good show. Just take Firefly. Firefly is an ensemble cast of just, you've got the captain, you've got the engineer, you've got the kind of spiritual man of the cloth, you've got the superhuman, she can just kick all the asses of whoever. You've River, you've got all of that. And he's able to make it work because each character has a distinct personality. And I think that is why that 86 intro is so good, because he identifies what separates the characters and makes them distinct and interesting. Sabine, hopeless Force user. I think that would have been a great angle for her character. So there you go. But hope always remains in Ahsoka. Dude, they are selling that show hard. They are selling that hard. Back in the days when you had to work for an audience, you had to work for it. Hayden is in the chat. Ahoy, Hayden. This is so great. It actually fits the show. It is one of the best things I've seen all year. It is so good. Welcome, Hayden. I'm so glad to see it. Melodic Method says they almost make it look watchable. Dude, it is. It is watchable. Look, I'm watching Doctor Who. Which has like a 100th of the budget of any Disney Plus episode. And it's amazing how much more of a story they're able to tell. It's amazing how much, Babylon 5, which could never have competed with Star Trek's budget. It's amazing how like they are still able to tell a story that is compelling and interesting. And I think that why that intro looks so kind of interesting compared to the show is you get the sense that, yes, it's going to be cheesy. You're going to see some bad choreography. You're going to see some kind of weird plots like the supernatural minions that might look a little laughable. However, there might be some good stuff in there. There might I think one of my favorites is Ahsoka, trained as a child soldier by the master of evil. It's so funny. It's like, yes. Like, they don't say Darth Vader. They don't say Anakin, the master of evil. But what's actually kind of interesting about that is like, what do they keep doing with the return of Hayden Christensen? They keep ruining his character. They keep ruining him. They're undermining Anakin and they're undermining Darth Vader. And by extension, they're undermining Luke, quite frankly, which as if they need more of that. But what's funny about the way they say the master of evil, it implies he's the master of evil, which is what he is, folks. Like, he was Darth Vader. He is the master of evil. He was the master of evil. He's the GOAT master of evil. So that show is giving more respect and more appreciation to the character of Anakin / Darth Vader than the actual Ahsoka show did, which is why it looks so watchable. I think she learned whale song from a fish named Dory. Absolutely. That double nod is perfect. Yes. My favorite, I love the part when she slaps the robot on the head, but it looks kind of just like, and then she swings the lightsaber. They do this thing where the camera does these quick zooms, so it makes it look like it's faster than it is, which is great. And 80s shows had to work for it, man. They didn't have all the CGI and the volume. They didn't have any of that stuff. And look at what they were able to produce. Like, so with mixed results, varying levels of good results. So, yes. So I caught the Gen V finale. And I don't know. I probably won't spend too much time on this, but I have to give you my thoughts on how they concluded it, because I did like the season for the most part. And I think that the final episode was mostly pretty good in terms of in keeping with the characters. So what I liked about the show is they had an ensemble cast. They told a really good institutionalized superhero story. And all the characters had strengths and weaknesses. They all had flaws and they all had redeeming elements of their personality. And I really was into all these characters. And I was actually pretty into this kind of smaller scale story in the boys' universe. And it wasn't quite, or at least I thought, it wasn't quite as nihilistic as the boys' story is. There was something that felt more hopeful in this season, or I should say in this show compared to the boys. And let's see. I don't want to spoil the final episode. Let me know if you care. But in any case, they have a pretty big conflict take place. Well, this is not really a spoiler because it happens in pretty much the beginning of the episode. Basically, they help all of the students escape the woods and they begin a revolt against the school. And it is bloody and it's merciless. And the characters have to decide which side are they on. Are they going to help protect the humans at the school, or are they going to join in with the other supers and just massacre people? And that's basically what sets the stage for a pretty crazy final episode. And I did mention that in the rules of the institutionalized genre, if you want to tell a good institutionalized story, that is, the characters will ultimately make the choice to either join the institution, burn it down, or become a sacrifice on the altar of that institution. And in this case, Kate, who has the mind control powers, decides to burn it all down, which is pretty spectacular. However, Marie, she has kind of, I would say she kind of chooses the sacrifice option as kind of, and I'll just leave it at that. But they have, this is the problem with the show, though. This is the problem, okay? And I've realized that this is why the boys universe is just never going to be all that. It's never going to reach any kind of level of greatness. It's always going to be a kind of junk food kind of show. You watch it because it's fun to watch Butcher say the C word every 10 seconds. And it's fun to, play with the ideas of superheroes being assholes. Is this ever going to have a cultural imprint or a cultural footprint? No, it's not. And I'll tell you why, because they never allow the story to completely land in The Boys. Every season of The Boys ends with a mystery box bullshit bait and switch, basically. Every single one. Because it ends with, oh, you thought you were going to see them fight Homelander to the death, and instead everything is back where it started. And nothing has changed, and there it is. And then they throw a hook at you that is just basically a cliffhanger. It's just a cliffhanger. Now, I'm not opposed, obviously, to a season ending with a cliffhanger. That's not my point. But before the cliffhanger, there should be a resolution. And so what they did at the end of Gen V is they brought in a Deus Ex Machina and basically just chopped off the end of the story and threw all the characters into a mystery box and then ended it. And then they threw in a couple cameos in the post-credit scene. And I'm like, and at first I wasn't really bothered by this. At first I was like, well, that was pretty explosive. That was a crazy ending. And then I realized, wait a minute, that's not an ending. That's not an ending. They cheated me out of an ending because basically they just interrupted the flow of the story. And it was actually kind of a lot like Luke Skywalker coming in at the end of Mandalorian season 3. It was kind of, or season 2. It was kind of like that, but not even as good as that. They just swooped in, cut everything off, and it's almost like as if to say that nothing you just watched actually mattered. That's almost what they're kind of implying. Nothing that these students did mattered. Nothing that they achieved or did not achieve had any ultimate impact on the flow of the story, with an exception or two. There's like one notable exception, which is their actions did allow the kind of superhuman virus to fall into, let's just say, the wrong hands. But other than that, there's really, you could argue that Gen V, the whole Gen V season, the whole purpose of it is just to throw in a hook for the next Boys season. And I find that really disappointing because these characters deserve better. They deserved their own ending. They deserved their own character journey. And what conclusion should I draw from the fact that they just basically robbed them of any proper resolution to all their characters? I think that it is the flaw that proves why woke storytelling always sucks. Because wokeness, right, which there's a lot of ways to define this, but intersectional feminism, radical leftism, a variety of things that we propaganda storytelling, I think it proceeds largely from a ideological worldview which sees humans as doomed, which sees humans as irredeemable. We're a bunch of assholes. It's the kind of Game of Thrones attitude of what humans are. We do terrible things to each other, and we do. You won't hear me deny that. But it's the difference between Gene Roddenberry's vision of humanity and a Wokie's vision of humanity. A Wokie's vision of humanity is, this is as good as it gets, folks. It's all downhill from here. Right? They're like Agent Smith in The Matrix. They basically agree with Agent Smith's argument to Morpheus that you humans, you do not establish an equilibrium with your surrounding environment. Instead, the only way you can survive is to spread to another area and multiply until every natural resource is consumed. There is another organism that follows this pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus. That's what they think. They think that we're a virus. They think that we are a blight. We are going to, there's no hope for us. And, to be fair, it remains to be seen whether they're right or wrong. But nevertheless, that is a choice to view the world that way. And because they view the world that way, I think they are incapable of having characters really have any agency. What is the problem with the message? What is the problem with it? The problem with it is it robs the characters of agency. It means that there are certain things the characters are disallowed to achieve, do, or say in the course of their story because it would run afoul of those rules, which is you can't, creativity is all about coloring outside the lines. It's the only option to have really meaningful art. And so you have these young characters that they struggle, they succeed, they fail, they risk, they lose, they trust, they form friendships and bonds and romances. They make powerful moral decisions informed by their character journey. And then at the end of it all, basically what the show tells us is if they had just stayed in bed the whole season, it would have been the same deal. It would just basically, it doesn't matter because nothing they learned, nothing they did is going to change anything because in this world, Vought runs it and that's how it is. And nothing is ever going to change that because humans are shit. And really what they're showing in that show is really Hollywood culture. That's basically what that show is about. This is the world that Hollywood people live in 24/7. It is a hyper narcissistic world in which the only currency of anything is how many clicks, retweets, how much fame, how much beauty, how much this, how much that. Humans are a commodity at all levels, in all forms. And really it's, I'm not even saying that there isn't an argument to be made on that from that perspective. I'm not even saying I dislike watching a show that argues that we have these flaws as a species. I'm not against it. Don't misunderstand. I'm not saying I am against a show like this making this case. I'm just saying could you do it, but also have the characters have their own journey and their own resolution? I'm not saying it has to have a happy ending. I was never expecting a happy ending, but I was expecting an ending. I was expecting an ending that those characters got because of their actions. Just like Matt Stone and Trey Parker were saying in that clip. These characters did this, therefore this happened. But this happened. And really, the Deus Ex Machina at the end just kills all that. So I hate to say it, but I don't know how many more of these. It's like you invest 8 episodes in a show like this. I invest 8 episodes in this show, and that was only because each episode was entertaining and I was enjoying it. And yet I know who these people are. I know who these people are that write this shit, and they never change. They never change. They do this shit on every show they do. But for some reason, I keep allowing myself to believe that okay, well, this is good writing. It deserves my attention. It's not wasting my time. And then what do they do in the final minutes of the show? They waste my time. They waste 8 episodes of my time, and it pisses me off. So this show was trending for like a 9 out of 10 on the epaulets, but in the full season review, I think I'm going to give Gen V. I will give it a. I'm tempted to give it a 7. But that ending was such highway robbery that I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 on the epaulets. 6 out of 10 because they robbed these characters of a meaningful ending, and it really disappointed me a lot. And everything up until that ending was pretty good. And I even liked the fact that they were telling a kind of small scale story. But this is the way modern writing is to a large extent, which is it's member berries, it's nostalgia bait, and it's mystery box. And I'm not saying that like most of the season was mystery box, but like this is the deal. If you're telling a season should be one complete story, cliffhanger or not, it should be one complete story. Now, if you like a complete story, then really you should check out my book. And I even made a little promo for it. So we're going to talk about, we've got a lot more in the stack of stuff. Let's watch the Echo trailer also, because I want to react to the Echo trailer with you because I haven't seen it yet. But first, this video is sponsored by the high seas action-adventure novel Blood and Oak by me, Captain Garrett. Here's the story. When his sister is kidnapped and sold into slavery by the Barbary Pirates, a daring young Navy officer embarks on a suicidal quest for rescue and revenge. This is a story of bloody naval warfare, set during the age of fighting sail, with ruthless rogues, smugglers, cutthroats, and pirates, with deadly sword fights, and tall ships slugging it out with cannons. Available now in Kindle, print, and audiobook. Go to www.bloodandoak.com. And when you get there, there's a free special gift waiting for you from me. Get your copy now. The link is in the description. And now, back to the video. Thank you, Captain. And now back to me. So that's a cool little promo I just made. So yes, Blood and Oak, that is my book 1 of 2 in the series so far. Blood and Oak available on Amazon. And it's the link is in the description, so check it out. And my point in bringing that up also is to point out that, you know, the first 2 books in the series I view as kind of a season 1 of the story. And it tells a complete arc from beginning to end. And that was very important to me because those are the kind of shows I used to love. I used to love shows that you get to the end of it and there is a treasure at the end that made the whole thing worth it. And Stranger Things does this well. One Piece did this brilliantly. You know, One Piece actually is a great example. One Piece did this brilliantly. They had this amazing season. They had all these amazing payoffs. You saw this crew come together. And then at the very end, they threw in like 2 really good hooks for like what's coming after Luffy next. And I love that. They had a post-credit hook that was really ominous, which is that you see like this shadowy figure just burning a hole in Luffy's picture on the wanted poster. And you're like, who's this guy? What does he want? Actually, I don't think it was a guy. I think that's probably who Glenn Close is going to play, is my guess. And then you also had the hint that Buggy the clown and Alvida the pirate both are out for blood now for Luffy because they both have an axe to grind. And that's cool. But we still got an ending to Luffy's story in season 1. And that is just super important. So in any case, well, thank you, Fu Man Blue. He says, cool promo. I appreciate it. Oh, yes. Melodic. It's the smell. I feel that I am saturated by it. Dude, Hugo Weaving, that is one of the great all-time, that's one of the great OG villains. I mean, who are like, if I had to do like my top 10 in no particular order, if I had to do like my top 10 of movie villains ever, Commodus from Gladiator, definitely Heath Ledger's Joker, Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, and of course, Agent Smith would definitely be one of the all-time greats. Saruman, Lord of the Rings, definitely. Well, Darth Vader. We'll throw in Darth Vader. Gul Dukat. Gul Dukat from Deep Space Nine. One of the greatest. And Weyoun. We'll throw Weyoun in. I love Weyoun on Deep Space. He's one of my favorite Star Trek supporting characters, I would say. He's so... Oh, Captain. You know, any Deep Space Nine fans, I just love how Weyoun always sounds like he's your best friend right as he's about to sink the knife in. There's a great line when they're first introducing the Dominion. In the very first mention of the Dominion is like one of my favorite kind of moments for the Dominion, because Quark is on a mission to like make a trade deal in the Gamma Quadrant, and he meets these aliens, and he's working his magic, he's making his deal, and then the alien says, okay, well, your deal sounds pretty good, but I'm going to have to run it by the Vorta first. And he's like, who's the Vorta? And he's like, well, they're part of the Dominion. He's like, what's the Dominion? He's like, well, everyone who does business in these parts knows who the Dominion is. He's like, okay, well, this is just between us. You know, why do you have to run it by the Vorta? He's like, because if you don't do what because you have to do what the Vorta tell you to do. And Quark says, why? Because if you don't do what the Vorta tell you to do, they'll send the Jem'Hadar. And then you die. And I was like, now that's a fantastic introduction to this ominous villain that's on the horizon. Hat tip to Deep Space Nine and the Dominion War, one of the greatest all-time Star Trek story arcs ever. Yes, anything with Quark is almost instantly interesting. Armin Shimmerman as that character is so good. He is just, what a great character is Quark. He had so much more complexity than you think he does, you know? I always loved the subplot that like Dax was an honorary Ferengi. Like two things, non-Ferengi and especially female non-Ferengi are not typically allowed to play Tonga, which is roughly equivalent to like a poker game with the Ferengi. They're not allowed to play Tongo. And but Dax is an exception because she's so awesome. And which, you know, this is back in the days before we were saturated with girl bosses, when it was her character earns it. Her character earns it. She's actually not like my favorite character on the show, but I did like that Quark has a thing for her, so he lets her play Tonko. Well, actually, Ferengi don't even let their women wear clothes. What else we got? Oh, that's right. I interrupted myself. So we have got to talk about, have you seen the Echo trailer? I have not. Are you excited about this? Have you seen this? I've not seen the Echo trailer. I have no idea what to expect here. I believe I heard the angriest man on the internet, Ryan Cannell, say that, I think it was Ryan, say that he didn't think it was terrible. And I'm like, what? Okay, well, let's see. Let's just see, shall we? I've given up on monetizing my live streams because, you know, I just love to do this. So here we go.
Maya. I see everything that you are. I always have.
Oh, I like that. Oh, I like that a lot.
Don't be afraid. You have so much pain in you. You. So much rage. That you can't contain it. You and I are the same. So, who's the monster?
Well, my thoughts on this are complicated. I really like Vincent D'Onofrio in that trailer. I really like the Kingpin. That actually sounded like the Kingpin. He had blood on his knuckles, which, okay. We have some actual violence going on here. The Kingpin actually, yes, Fu Man Blue. I like the metallic sound it made when the Kingpin punched. I think that was super cool. Melodic Method says, looks promising, to be honest. I'm amazed to say this, but that was looking like a pretty interesting story. Now, why? But here's actually, therein lies the red flag, though, actually. And I'm not blackpilling here. I am open to this show being good. I am always open to these shows being good. They just never are. I'm open to it, though. I'm open. But here's the red flag I see. And this is not because of that trailer specifically. This is because of the pattern. Okay. This is because of what they keep doing to us every single time. And what I started to think was, what's actually intriguing about this trailer? Well, it's the Kingpin. The Kingpin. And listen, I just gave you my no particular order top 10. Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin is one of the best superhero villains I've ever seen on film, as played in the Netflix Daredevil show. In the Netflix Daredevil show, he's incredible. He's complex. He's interesting. My God, his performance is just profound. It is profound, his performance. He's up there with Heath Ledger's Joker for me. And Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. He's just up there at that league. He's so good. And I would love to see him be the villain in a Tom Holland Spider-Man. I think that would be awesome. I would love that like you wouldn't believe, and just throw in the Charlie Cox Daredevil as a team up. Oh my God, that would be so good if it weren't Disney, okay? However, what is also going on in that trailer? Well, we've got Echo. Now, this is what I will say. That seems like the right angle to go. If you're going to make this character interesting, that's pretty interesting, that she can't hear. She sees the world differently. She's had a hard life and she has to struggle. And there's something there. There's something there that actually is pretty interesting. And I could see them telling a compelling story. You know what I'm not seeing in this trailer? I'm not seeing a bunch of bullshit about the multiverse. I'm not seeing a bunch of magical garbage. I'm not seeing the world is going to be destroyed by some giant behemoth, whatever. There's no, I'm seeing a story that seems to have the proper scale, which is she is someone who's fallen in with a bad crowd and she's caught up in like the mob. Okay, that's all pretty interesting. Vincent D'Onofrio is bringing all the gravitas, but here's the problem I see. If you take the Kingpin out of that trailer, is this interesting? Is it? Does she carry that trailer just by herself? I submit to you that she does not. Now, what is this? Anakin is in Ahsoka. It's like it's a cameo. It's a cameo. It's clout chasing is what it is. They are making her character more interesting in that trailer because who's doing all the talking? Vincent D'Onofrio's incredible character. They are appropriating the brilliant character from the Netflix Daredevil show, and they are using that to make an interesting trailer in which she is a part. Now, this does not mean the show necessarily will be terrible, because there is a way to get at this that I think works just fine, which is, but this is the mistake they made in the sequel Star Wars trilogy. It's the mistake that they keep making in all of these MCU shows, which is they fail to give the legacy character the proper weight. Now, that trailer did it correctly, which is Kingpin is up here, okay? He's an OG. He's a legacy character with clout. She's down here. She's a newbie, and we're being introduced to her. Now, if the show plays it that way, that could be interesting. But if they do the kind of Rey Skywalker thing where it's like, he's there and she's just awesome from the beginning, I don't know. That's kind of what I think it'll be. I don't have a lot of faith because of the pattern. I don't have a lot of faith this will be good. But the trailer made it seem like that, like they're kind of taking this at the right angle. So we'll see. If they allow her character to earn it, it could be good. This is the problem. Okay. These Disney writers, they're like a 2-year-old that is told, okay, if you don't eat that cookie, when I come back in the room, if that cookie is still there, I'll give you 2 cookies. Okay. But you can't eat that cookie or you only get that one. Now, this is an actual experiment they do with kids. It's perfectly ethical and moral. Anyway, it's for science. Anyway, and so they tell the 2-year-old, you could have 2 cookies if you resist the temptation to eat that one cookie. And you know what always happens? That cookie is gone. When the researcher comes back in the room, the cookie is gone. They can't help themselves because they don't have impulse control yet. And so they eat the cookie. Well, that's the Disney writers. It's like if you can just restrain yourself from making her a super over-the-top whammon girl boss, blah, 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 and just have it be that she's had a hard life and she's got to earn her way, and she has to earn the audience's investment by small and careful degrees. Therefore, this happens, but then this happens, therefore that happens. Then she could wind up being a good character. Because the dirty little secret is that's the same thing that happened with Iron Man. That's the same thing that happened with Steve Rogers, Captain America, and Chris Hemsworth, Thor ad infinitum. The problem is I don't think these writers are capable of restraining themselves. They can't resist the urge to just have her girl boss too close to the sun, as It's a Gundam would say. So I'm not saying I'm not making a prediction that it will be a total disaster. I'm just telling you, I've seen this song and dance before. And I do not trust them. I just do not trust them. But if we just take that trailer in isolation, that was pretty good. That was a pretty good trailer. And I will say, I saw blood. I saw some real violence, like some real serious menace and violence from the Kingpin. And that was promising. That was very promising, because what they did in Hawkeye with him was garbage. Like they ruined his character. But I just consider Hawkeye an Elseworlds Kingpin. So they only have tall children drinking coffee and posting. I don't know what that's in response to. I missed that in the chat. Oh, here we go. Redoubt has a thought. This must be about, oh yeah, Fu Man Blue says he's a legendary Kingpin. He has a fat enough head that they can exaggerate the body closer to comic book accurate without it looking fully bizarre. I totally agree. They're able to kind of communicate the size and the kind of superhuman strength without it seeming too outlandish, and I really like that. Redoubt Production says, welcome, Redoubt. Good to see you. That was a compelling trailer, but I don't trust Disney Marvel to have the restraint necessary to execute this story well. Yes, exactly. So we're in total alignment on this one, Redoubt. That's exactly my feeling on the trailer. It's like, okay, you have my attention. That trailer was pretty banger. And that is a shock to me. I'm tempted to withdraw my downvote on that trailer, but no, I hate Disney and I hate them. But I'm open to forgiveness. We shall see. If the show is good, I'll withdraw my downvote on the trailer. Hello. Can you hear me still? I had a power fluctuation. So if you can hear me, just stand by. I'm trying to get the main internets back. My camera's out because it's a Wi-Fi camera. But I was in the middle of a great point. Let me know in the chat if you can still hear me. Okay, cool. Thanks, Wrangler. What I was in the middle. I was just about to land an incredible point, and the power had to fluctuate. Oh, is there no justice? But no, Netflix's Daredevil, 10 out of 10 on the epaulets. That was such a good show. The way I love Charlie Cox's performance, the character, they did it exactly right, which is he's kind of low to the ground. He's beating up human traffickers in that. It's so good. It's so good. You know, the only time I really didn't like Daredevil is when they were super into that kind of weird like ninja magical warriors thing, like that got a little out of control for me, and it was because they were trying to tie in the Iron Fist, which I did not like. I just got the Elektra plot line really bored the hell out of me. I did not like that version of Elektra. I didn't like that character. I just felt like it turned into a kind of soap opera when she was there. But aside from that, when it's like him and the Punisher and him and Kingpin, oh, so good. It was so good. Read out. It says, my plan for conquest is going to plan. I take down the captain's power. Then I roll in my 12-pound Napoleons to lay waste to Wrangler on Monday. Well, you won't take me alive, sir. No, we don't have to move to a new stream melodic. Don't leave me. I need the views. I'm desperate. No, I'm just kidding. No, I should have. I'm just waiting for the proper internet to come back, and I think it has. So let me try this. Connecting camera. And let's see if this works. Okay. Let's go to settings. Okay, I got to leave the stream and come back. All right. So let me I should have had like a really good video. It's queued up, and I almost did. No, that's not what we want. Hang on. Hang on, my dear sailors and starnauts. What if I'll be right back. I just have to leave the stream and come back. So let's do this. There we are. And we're back. We're back. Crisis averted. You know, I for a minute, I was considering.
Put a tick in it, make her gay. Fuck Indiana Jones, put a tick in it and make her name it gay. Put a tick in it, make her gay. Fuck Indiana.
But I thought better of it. And also, I forgot to take that off loop. Oh, no. By the way, I have another great meme. Do you want to see another great meme? I just came across this.
You know how to read?
Yes, I do know how to read.
Name 10 books.
Okay. Well, the Game of Thrones series,
That's not a book.
Twilight
I want the
series.
name
It
of
is
the
a book. I'll Google the book right now.
Okay, the book is called The Song of Ice and Fire. She couldn't even actually name a single book. She doesn't know how to read. She's clearly illiterate.
I think that is the kid. I think that's the kid that got up when there were those game awards, and he like got up on stage and kind of muscled his, and just pretended he was there to get the award, and the game developers didn't notice it. It was like for Elden Ring or something. I forget which game it was. I think it was. Dude, it's so funny. He's like, name one book, name 10 books. And she's like, Game of Thrones. That's not the name of the book. It's stupid. She's clearly illiterate. She doesn't know how to read. He wound her up so good. Oh, one more time.
You know how to read?
Yes, I do know how to read.
Name 10 books.
Okay. Well, the Game of Thrones
It's
series,
not a book.
Twilight
I
series.
want the name
It
of
is
the
a
book.
book. I'll Google the book right now.
Okay,
man.
the book is called The Song of Ice and Fire. She couldn't even actually name a single book. She doesn't know how to read. She's clearly illiterate.
He's like, I'll Google it right now. Imagine that. You're trying to prove your literacy. Anyway, that kid is a hero. He really is. Because imagine if, like, just because of your gender, you were not afforded, like, oh yeah, of course, you're a woman, so of course you're able to read. You're not expected to have to defend your intellectual position just because of your gender or your whatever. It's like, I love how he's like, well, no, there it is. That's you want to be on an equal playing field. There you go. That means you have to be able to defend your intellectual ideas and take your L's. We all have to take our L's. That's life. Yes, exactly. Read out. He's based AF. I have no idea who that kid is. I just came across that. He live trolled Hassan Piker. Dude, you know what's interesting? It's a Gundam has been doing these videos about these kind of like wannabe trolls that go and do like Johnny, what was his name? Johnny something. He goes to Japan and says, racist things to Japanese people's face and talks about Hiroshima and Nagasaki and terrible things like that. It just makes thank you. We Americans really needed that. We really appreciate that. Just give us even a worse reputation wherever we go. That's like, even when we're well-meaning, we're kind of, anyway. And it's like, but then you compare that with that kid who's like, he's actually doing something super interesting. That's like really, he actually is challenging people. And he's, there's such a difference between just going around and being an asshole and breaking into places and breaking laws and abusing people's goodwill. And then there's actually engaging with people that are actually, he's in other words, he's engaging on their battlefield, which is if those guys were like Johnny, were going and doing that to other influencers, that would be one thing. But they're going and doing it to just innocent people on the Japanese subway who are just trying to get home from work, Yeah. Didn't he do that podcast that he had the fat dude wearing the little girl shirt? I don't know. Fu Man Blue says, I do love that leap. It was like a very lib-like to decide she can't read. Yeah, exactly. It's obviously hyperbole. I mean, she can read Google. But I know it's so ridiculous. It's like, oh, she obviously can't read. It's like, but it is funny though that she's trying to represent herself. It's like that, she knows all this stuff. She's so certain of everything she knows that she doesn't even hear that she just named. That's not the name of the series. It's the Song of Ice and Fire book series. The first book in the series is called A Game of Thrones. It's like, so in other words, she's just assuming she watched the movie instead of doing the reading. That's basically what this is. So, fun times. There you go. Five Nights at Freddy's, despite it not being like, I don't think a super great film. Let me know if anyone disagrees. I want to hear your thoughts on this. I'm just telling you my take on this movie is it was just not that good. However, it is crushing it at the box office. Try this headline from Variety. Five Nights at Freddy's repeats #1 despite, well, I get, maybe I misread that. It repeats its #1 spot despite a brutal 76% drop. Uh-oh. I totally misread that headline because I was thinking, I didn't read that as a 76%. I thought it was keeping 76%, not declining. Five Nights at Freddy's collapsed at the box office, but still managed to emerge on top. Universal and Blumhouse's fall sleeper hit has collected $19.4 million in its sophomore outing, resulting in a massive 76% decline from its debut. They write these things in such a confusing way. You're calling it a fall sleeper hit and saying it's collected 19 million, and it's a massive decline. That doesn't sound like a sleeper hit to me. Universal and Blumhouse's spooky video game adaptation, which takes place in a haunted Chuck E. Cheese-esque establishment, has generated a towering $113 million to date, which is nice because they have actually reasonable budgets at Blumhouse. That is it Jason Blum, I believe is his name, who founded the Blumhouse Studios and runs it. He had a great interview on Ben Shapiro's Sunday Special, of all things, and he described his whole philosophy. This guy should go and do a mission of mercy to Disney. He should go and donate his time for charity and teach Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy and Kevin Feige and all these idiots at Disney how to run a movie business. He should teach them how to do it because Jason Blum understands how to run a studio, which is he pays his actors well. He pays them. He hands them actual checks, which is something he's always liked doing. He justifies the expenses of film based on their return. He keeps the budgets as small as possible. He loves doing films on as small budget as possible. He is a great movie business. He's a great movie businessman is what he is. So I have great admiration for Blumhouse Studios. I really do. And they produce some amazing stuff. They've also produced a lot of stinkers, but they're good at making money, which is the thing. That's the thing. If you don't make a $250 million boondoggle, well, $113 million is a nice little return. So yeah, $80 million opening weekend. And I think a lot of that was drafting off of the clout from the game, which is understandable because the game is the phenomenon that it is. Boy, I'll tell you what, though. I think having it on Peacock cost them. That definitely cost them a little bit. Five Nights at Freddy's is crashing in its second weekend of simultaneous streaming. The two viewing options compete with each other. Yes, I would agree. So even if that's the case, Five Nights at Freddy's is a massive commercial winner. After 10 days of release, it's already the highest grossing horror film of the year, overtaking The Nun 2, Megan, and Scream 6. It's also been a huge draw at the international box office with $103 million, bringing its global tally to $217 million. What was the budget? Control F, budget. Now we're into Killers of the Flower Moon. Let's see. So the second weekend ticket sales are still decent for the $20 million. So Five Nights at Freddy's has a $20 million budget. Think about that, folks. And it's actually, the effects are pretty good. For a movie that's only $20 million, it's pretty good. Like the characters, they look real, I mean, they look like real they look like real animatronics. And I think they were actually, as my understanding. So that's called smart movie business. It's like you make $20 million. Imagine if the film were a total flop, okay? And it only made 40 or 50 million. It breaks even with the marketing and everything. I'm sure the licensing with Peacock adds to that. So there has to be some value. There's definitely got to be some value there. So I think this is, but they make a tidy little profit. Maybe they break even. This is why Blumhouse can just fire out all these films all the time and be an extremely successful studio. And it's like, if Disney could just freaking learn this lesson, stop spending $25 million to see She-Hulk twerk, you morons, and just make a film, make a show that earns its success. Like, dude, Jason Blum needs to go they need to beg him. They need to beg him to teach them how to run a movie business. These morons. It's unbelievable. Sophomore outing, I believe that's just a snooty critic way or journo way of saying it's second week. It's sophomore week. Believe me, it drives me nuts. Like when I hate the word threequel. I really hate that word. It's like it's just because they want to find it's thesaurus writing is what it is. They're just trying to use words that sound a little different. And look, it's a grift. Journalisming is a grift as well. Just journalisming all over things. And at the end of the day,
'cause we're boring.
was so fucking boring!
Is why they use terms like sophomore outing and threequel. Readout says, how does one go about gathering the necessary resources for a mercy mission, a mission of mercy to Disney? That reminds me of the Alec Baldwin clip from Glenn Ross. I'm sure you've seen it, where he's going to speak to these salespeople. He's a hotshot salesman, and they're all failed salesmen. And he's like, I'm here on a mission of mercy. Should we just watch that? Maybe we should just watch that. This is basically, I could do a meme out of this. This is basically what Jason Blum showing up at the Disney studios should look like. Yeah, I didn't even type in the whole thing. It's like the third search term. So I know everyone has seen this. I know you've seen this. Here we go. Share screen.
It is 7:30.
So who is that?
And where's Mr. Roma?
Well, I'm not a leash, so I don't know, do I?
Let me have your attention for a moment. Because you're talking about what? You're talking about bitching about that sale you shot. Some son of a bitch don't want to buy land. Somebody don't want what you're selling. Some broad you're trying to screw, so forth. Let's talk about something important. Are they all here?
All but one.
Well, I'm going anyway. Let's talk about something important. Put that coffee down.
Just imagine that this is Jason Blum of Blumhouse Studios, and these are all the Disney execs. You know, you got Kathleen, that's Kevin Feige with the coffee.
Coffee's for closers only. You think I'm fucking with you? I am not fucking with you. I'm here from downtown. I'm here from Mitch and Murray. And I'm here on a mission of mercy.
This would be so good.
Your name's Levine.
Your name's Loveness. You wrote Quantum Mania.
You call yourself a salesman, you son of a bitch?
You call yourself a writer?
I don't gotta listen to this shit. You certainly don't, pal. Because the good news is you're fired. The bad news is you've got just 1 week to regain your job, starting with tonight. Starting with tonight's sit. Oh, have I got your attention now? Good. Because we're adding a little something to this month's sales contest. As you all know, first prize is a Cadillac Eldorado. Anybody want to see second prize? Second prize is a set of steak knives. Third prize is you're fired. You get the picture? You laughing now? You got leads. Mitch and Murray paid good money. Get their names to sell them. You can't close the leads you're given. You can't close shit. You are shit. Hit the bricks, pal, and beat it, because you are going out.
The leads are weak.
The leads are weak.
That's like you got good fans. You've got an excited fan base. Like the fans are shit. The fans are toxic.
Fucking leads are weak. You're weak. I've been in this business 15 years.
What's your name?
Fuck you. That's my name. You know why, mister? Because you drove a Hyundai to get here tonight. I drove an $80,000 BMW. That's my name. And your name is you're wanting. And you can't play in the man's game. You can't close them. Then go home and tell your wife your troubles. Because only one thing counts in this life. Get them to sign on the line which is dotted. You hear me, you fucking faggots?
Oh shit. I forgot about that. Dude, you can't even make movies like this. Oh shit. You can't even make movies like this anymore. Isn't that, dude? I'm telling you right now. I can't even, can you even remember when movies, anyway. That is basically Jeff Loveness and Kathleen Kennedy and Kevin Feige. The fans are shit. The fans are toxic. The fans are shit. You're shit. It's like all that matters in this life is get them to buy the ticket at the theater. You can't do that. Hit the bricks, pal. You are a loser. It's like, oh my God. That's what Jason Blum needs to take. They're like, what's your name? What are you lecturing us for? You're like, fuck you. That's my name. I just made a $20 million movie that did $113 million on its first week. That's my name. It's like, oh, could you just picture it, folks? Could you just picture it? Oh, it would just be glorious. I know. Well, I didn't even bother monetizing this time because, Gino's he's in the chat. None too, LOL. None is not a Blumhouse, though, is it, though? I think None is New Line Cinema. Oh, which reminds me, I am totally into the Conjuring Universe. I had never seen any of these films, but I just heard someone talking about it. And welcome, Gino, I forgot to say. Welcome. And I just thought, I heard Jeremy, I think, was talking about it. He was saying The Conjuring was really good. And he didn't steer me wrong on Dawn of the Dead. So I thought, all right, we'll give The Conjuring a shot. Folks, I'm going to tell you something right now. The Conjuring is a flawless film. It is flawless. Probably a little. Look, it's a 10 out of 10 for this captain. That being said, flawless. There's no such thing as a truly flawless film. Maybe The Lord of the Rings is like this close, but folks, it is a brilliant horror film. And it's an excellent haunting film. And I'll tell you, there's a couple of things I noticed about The Conjuring that make it succeed so well. You have all the characters immediately you get invested in. They all have really good save the cat moments. I really love the characters of Lorraine and Ed Warren. And I love Patrick Wilson's portrayal of this character of Ed Warren. He's so likable. You know what's so interesting? It's like when Ed and Lorraine show up in the movie, they immediately bring with them a sense of calm and like, oh, thank God, someone's here to help. Like the fact that those characters are able to create that feeling in the film is a tribute to both what great characters they are and also how well established the threat and the horror is. And I'll tell you something. What's one thing I've said? If you've listened to this channel for any length of time, you know my opinion of exorcism movies. I think exorcism is like, it's like zombies. It's not scary. Why is exorcism not scary? Because all you have to do is leave the room and just don't go back in there. Like that's just leave her in the room. Just leave. Or if you really care about saving the soul of the poor tyke, well, then all you have to do is pray hard. You just pray hard. Just keep praying, and you can't go wrong. That's all you got to do. Just you have the holy water in the book, and you just pray. You just pray, and that's it. That's all you need to do. So how am I supposed to be afraid of that? Right now, this is also kind of a problem with, or in the case of zombies, you just walk faster. You just walk faster, and you'll be fine. In the case of like ghost stories, you just leave the house. Like, don't go back in that house. Go get a hotel. Don't go back. Now, I'm being facetious here because these are problems I frequently see in these movies that kill the tension and make me not like it. Now, my favorite kind of a horror movie is a ghost story. It's my absolute favorite. If you can tell me a good ghost story, I am your fan for life. That is like my favorite thing in the world is a good ghost story. And unfortunately, there's a couple of problems a lot of ghost stories suffer from. Number one, the ghosts aren't scary. Why? Because I don't have a sense they could really hurt me, right? Second thing that's a problem in ghost stories is the finale. The finale of the story is usually kind of a letdown. It's usually like either it's like The Haunting, that film, The Haunting with Liam Neeson years ago. It's either this over the top, crazy, overblown CGI, gobbledygook, or it's kind of just a fart in the wind. It's like, oh, we blessed the house and the ghosts are gone now. Yay. And it's like, that's not very good. So landing that bird is tricky. I'm going to tell you something. The Conjuring succeed, it nailed it on all those levels. Okay. Number one, the ghosts are freaking terrifying. They're lethal. Like in the very beginning of The Conjuring, it kills a dog. It kills the dog. That's terrifying, folks. Then there's all these scenes where it pulls the leg of one of the characters. That's terrifying. It immediately establishes the ghost can physically interact with you. They're very careful about when they actually show you the entity. Like the entity occasionally will show up in really interesting ways, a reflection in a mirror at the wrong moment. It's great. So they don't overexpose the ghost. Like that's another problem. If you get this big CGI monstrosity coming at you, it kills it. Because now I'm just looking at a superhero movie and I'm totally out of it. But they just give you little glimpses of the demonic apparition and they just keep escalating that terror. Then you've got, remember, we just went through Matt Stone and Trey Parker talking about what is a good plot, right? If your plot is this happens and then this happens and then this happens, you're fucked, right? If it's the ghost throws a book and then the ghost rattles some shelves and then it's like, well, that's a shitty ghost story. But The Conjuring is, well, there's 3 stages to demonic possession as the characters of Lorraine and Ed, which are excellent characters, by the way, that they explain the rules, right? Which the rules are stage 1 is infestation. Things are going bump in the night. The ghost is usually allowed in by playing with a Ouija board or something seemingly harmless like that. Then there's oppression. The ghost starts throwing shit, causing a bunch of problems, wearing you down. And then finally, there's the possession stage where the ghost has worn you down enough that they take control. And then what type of ghost is it? Well, this is not a natural ghost. This is what we call what did they call it? An unnatural entity, which is a spirit that has never assumed human form in its existence and lusts for that. And what do they call that? Also known as a demon. So they establish kind of the motivations of the different entities. Why do they exist? What do they want? What is their end game? Dude, you have an absolute understanding of all the stakes at every level as the story progresses. And the stakes keep intensifying as the story goes on. And the jeopardy keeps increasing. You are clear on what each character stands to lose if they fail to win this fight with the demon. And so it turns out to be a good ghost story, a good exorcism story. It's a freaking creepy as hell horror movie. And I couldn't help but think The Conjuring does correctly every single thing that Five Nights at Freddy's did incorrectly. And that's the thing. It's if the ghost becomes your friend, if the ghost becomes your really special friend, he's my best friend, is Freddy Fazbear. If that's what happens at the end of your movie, you've killed it. You've just killed the whole reason for the movie, which is what happens in Five Nights at Freddy's, and it ruins it. It's no, if they had done it like they are entities and they want to consume your soul, and Abby is the offering that they are after, well, then that is better. That's better. Well, I also thought these Annabelle movies look cringe as hell. I was like, okay, who cares about a doll? I actually seriously thought they were kind of one of those tongue-in-cheek horror comedies. I didn't think they were meant to be taken seriously. But then they introduced the Annabelle doll in this movie, and I thought, okay. And then in the second film, they introduced the nun, and now I'm into all these now because I watched Annabelle. Dude, there is a scene in Annabelle when this young mother is down in the storage level of her apartment building, and there is a frickin' demon in there with her. It is one of the most blood-curdling things I've ever seen. There are some mechanics in this that there is this mechanic where she's trying to get in the elevator and escape. She presses the button and the elevator closes, and that whole time those doors are closing, you're just waiting for the demon to come out, and then it closes, and you're like, oh God. I'm watching this scene. I'm like, oh yes, get that elevator to the top floor. Well, then the elevator goes ding and it opens. She's still in the basement, folks. And I'm like, oh, fuck this. I'm like, no. That's not cool, man. Oh, no, fuck that. That's a good horror movie, folks. That is a great, I just get chills thinking about that thing. And I thought this was a dopey movie about a doll walking around scaring you. And it's so much better than that. So I am into Annabelle. I just started The Nun. I'm into The Conjuring. And let me tell you, one of the number one things that these movies do well, they follow the monster in the house genre correctly, right? In a monster in the house story, you have to, the rules are you got to have a monster, you got to have a house, you got to have innocents that are kind of dragged into it. And it's a battle for survival, right? It's the most primal genre of storytelling. And the rules of Monster in the House for the characters are don't get eaten, right? Now, the problem with a lot of like bad ghost stories is that doesn't apply, because if you know the ghost can't hurt you, how can you get eaten, so to speak, right? I'm telling you right now, the ghosts in these movies, in Annabelle, The Nun, etc., The Conjuring, you can get eaten. They can eat you. Like, it's serious shit. Like, you are in deep shit if one of these entities is after you, which is great. And then here's the second thing. They establish the house, right? And now this is what's interesting about it. The house is actually not the house, because you can leave the house, but the entity will follow you. And as Ed and Lorraine explain in the rules of this universe, if a demon is oppressing you, it is either attached itself to you or it's attached itself to an object, which the object can follow you. So in any case, the house is the family. The house is the family. It doesn't matter where the family goes, the monster will still be in the house, right? And so they have to defeat the monster. It's the only way to win. If you don't defeat the entity, you're screwed. You're screwed. And it's freaking brilliant. It is freaking brilliant. And I'm so into these movies. Shout out D-Day Cobra Retard. Jeremy would appreciate that. He really would. Gotta go, Fu Man. Good night, Fu Man Blue. And good night. Good night, Wrangler. Thank you for joining the captain on this wonderful Captain's Cast. And there they go. Wrangler says, I met the real Ed and Lorraine Warren. They seem like good folks. Yeah, I'll tell you something kind of amazing about these characters. So I kind of make a distinction between the characters in the films and the real life people, because let's just face it, I think these films are very fictionalized versions of their lives. However, I do think it's kind of cool how they sort of interweave the reality with the fantasy of it. And there's more that happens in the films that's true to their accounts than you would think, which is cool. But I don't take them, I take them with a big grain of salt. But what I like about the characters of Ed and Lorraine Warren is they're very Christian characters, but they're portrayed as like just very good people. I know this is weird, but they're portrayed as just very good people who have this mission in life to like help people that are stuck with these demons or have these problems. And I like how they themselves are not always sure they want to keep doing this because of the danger to them and the risk to their family. And I think it's another big reason why these films work so well is because there's a sense of a fear of loss with all of the characters that are being tortured by these demons, because, we have, in the case of Annabelle, it's a young mother who's trying to protect her daughter. Like, that's super powerful, I think. And also, it's the fact that we see in Ed and Lorraine, we have classic heroes. We have this amazing hero partnership. And I love how Ed and Lorraine help each other. They both have strengths and they both have weaknesses. And I like how they kind of are always at their best when they're together. Like, whenever one of them breaks off and is going it alone, that's when there's the most danger to either one of them. But when they're together, it's when they are the most solid because they're working as a team. Like superheroes working as a team. It's very cool because she has clairvoyance and he is kind of more of the he's got more of the intellectual knowledge of the rules because he's the demonologist. I think that is a super brilliant way of doing these buddy characters. So they're kind of a buddy cop duo of the supernatural world, which works really, really well. But I like how you get to see them as heroes struggle and prevail. And I think it makes these films have like a really nice ray of hope in them that makes them worth your time. You know, they're not just this nihilistic story that just is going to leave you feeling crushed. And I'm not against that in horror. You know, some horror is nihilistic horror. It just is. But I like how these are almost kind of like mini heroes' journeys, every one of these movies. And that is brilliant because you kind of you want to get to the end. Fu Man Blue says, if I was a man in a woke zombie story, I'd have it made. I'd be surrounded by 2 to 3 women at all times, and I could always outrun them when trouble came. Except that the zombies would bite you in the balls. That's just kind of what would happen. So I don't know if you'd want that deal. And I once got away, the writer would always be sure to find more women. That's right. Yeah, there's plenty of women to eat in a woke zombie story. There you go. So I just found it interesting that like, I felt it was kind of validating to see The Conjuring and see all the things they're doing right in that story. Because a lot of people were enjoying Five Nights at Freddy's, fans of the game. And like Star Wars Theory, you know, who has all of his fans who want to believe Star Wars is still good. I would hate to rain on their parade. Just as I hate to rain on the parade of anyone that was having fun with Five Nights at Freddy's, but facts are facts, which is there just were elements of that movie that just did not work. And when I saw The Conjuring, I'm like, see, this is exactly Friday Nights at, or why do I keep saying that? Five Nights at Freddy's had a lot of the elements that The Conjuring had that were really good, such as super creepy location, really likable heroes, possible fear of loss, you know, something to kind of root for in the characters. So it had all those elements. But what it was missing was the clear rules. Like the rules were very unclear in Freddy's. I just didn't understand. Are these things trying to steal souls? Are these kids' souls that are in the machines? In order to get absorbed by the machine, does it have to like do that weird spinny blade mask thing on your face? Like, what's that? Why is that happening? The bad guy controls them somehow, but also they're kind of doing I don't understand. So I just think having super clear rules of like, this is the demon, this is what it wants. Like, that's a very important mechanic that you got to have. And I just think it's a big miss to make the Freddy's characters become allies in the story, because I think The Conjuring 2 actually there was a ghost that turns out to kind of be not exactly a friendly ghost, but not the real bad. Like there's a worse bad guy in the story. I think you could have done that with the Freddy's characters and have it work, but having them just turn into friends just ruins all the tension. So check out I'm into the Conjuring verse. I will keep you informed. I will keep you informed of the Conjuring verse. So we've had a great stream tonight, going 2 hours, almost 3 hours now. Need a sip of water. I wanted to check this out. Did you know there's a new Godzilla movie coming out? We'll just, you know, full demonetization all the way. Skip ad. Dude, I totally forgot. That Alec Baldwin used the banned word. He used the naughty word in that clip. I totally forgot. But dude, it's you know, sometimes there just ain't any other word for it. All right, Godzilla -1. What do you think of this? The weird title for me. Dude, that is rad. Godzilla minus one. There you go. Dude, that last part where his ridges are like powering up for the big main event. Oh my god. Dude, why does this story never get old? Like, why does that never get old? It never gets old. The story of like, here's this Godzilla showing up and it's like he's a big lizard and he's trashing the city. Dude, I loved that so much when I was a kid. Godzilla 1985 was just my jam. Godzilla is always best when Godzilla is the bad guy. Like when it's just him in the city, it's the best. Man, it's the best. He's just there to trash us. He's there to trash our shit. Yes, Redoubt. Oh my god, it's Godzilla. Godzilla minus one. That's my impression of how they say it. Godzilla. And, you know, I'll tell you something. Godzilla is a great monster in the house story, by the way. Speaking of monster in the house stories, it's a great one. The house is the city of Tokyo, and Godzilla is the monster. But, you know, why is it that they can never make the humans interesting in these, though? I don't know why they... Like, Independence Day was able to do this. Independence Day was able to make the humans interesting. Like, why are they never able to do this with Godzilla? The humans are always super boring. I don't care what they're doing. They always have these really overcomplicated, melodramatic plots. They seem like fillers. But even in like the Monarch universe movies, I feel like they could be interesting. They could be kind of interesting characters, but the problem is they stuff the plot with so damn many of them that it's like, why am I following 10 of these freaking Monarch characters in this convoluted plot line? Just have it be that there's 3 or 4 characters, a dad, his daughter. You know, I was so disappointed when Bryan Cranston turned out to be like this really tiny part of that first Godzilla movie, because I thought, dude, that sounds cool. Bryan Cranston as this kind of scientist, but also a father, kind of trying to warn the world about this impending danger. Like that had a lot of like Independence Day kind of vibes to me. And I thought that's cool. And then he's kind of like there and gone. And then there's this super complicated plot. And I'm like, why can they never pull this off? I don't understand why. But yes, the spines, the spikes popping out, you know, like as he's powering up was freaking cool. Like, you know, they always give the glory to Godzilla, as they should. And they know how to do, they always do that shot where he's swimming under the ship. Like what? They always do that shot. Like because it looks cool. Let's just face it. It looks cool. And some of the, like, yes, some of the CGI was not like the best, but at least the spirit of it was pretty good, which is the way you're seeing, like, you know, the ship come flying. Super cool. When I was a kid in like 4th grade, my friends and I, there was this club that they called the Odyssey of the Mind. I don't know if anyone remembers this or if they still do this in schools, but it was kind of like an academic decathlon type of thing. And you had to like do different activities to compete and like you could win things. And so we did like a skit of Godzilla trashing a city. And we had built all these cardboard buildings, you know, and we had like a friend dress up as Godzilla trashing it. And it was some of the most fun I've ever had as a kid, was building that little mini city. And like we loved Godzilla when I was a kid. It was the best thing ever. What do I think Godzilla -1 means? Maybe it's a play on like T minus, like it's the first appearance of Godzilla -1 year, you know, like T minus Godzilla's arrival, you know, like 1 year. I don't know. Maybe it's because it sounds like it might be kind of a prequel. So that's my best guess. But yeah, a typically idiosyncratic and eccentric name for Japanese filmmaking. You know, the Japanese love their enigmatic titles. Like, you know, just take One Piece. One Piece. What the hell does that mean? And then you see it and you're like, oh, okay, all the treasure is in one piece. Okay, that's cool. I'm down with it. It's like the show, one of my favorite animes of all time is Blue Gender, what the hell does blue gender mean? Then you watch it and it's a typically convoluted explanation of what blue gender means. But once you get it, you get it. Neon Genesis Evangelion. What the hell is that? Like, why? And why is it neon? And why is it Genesis? Don't ask me these things, Fu Man Blue. Melodic Method says the horrific mysteries of the sea come to land are a terrifying story. Godzilla is as primal a story as it gets. Godzilla is we humans learning our proper place in the natural order of things. And that's, this is why alien invasion stories are so good. This is why zombie apocalypse stories are so primal and compelling. It is humans getting a reality check on our hubris. It's humans, we all kind of sense we have it sort of coming. We like every human being, we have got an awful lot of supremacy on this planet. Our pride of place on this planet, in which we have dominion over almost everything there is to have dominion over. We all kind of sense that, okay, when's the other shoe going to drop? And I think that's why these films are so good. This is why pandemic films and stuff like that are so compelling, because they tap into our natural guilt. Okay. About, look, we've had shit pretty good for a long time. So it's only natural that a giant, 1,000-foot tall monster destroys one of our cities once in a while. Actually, I agree with this, Fu Man Blue. The guy screaming at the sky, like he was having a story. Yeah, he's having a story. he's having a real story right there. It did look pretty cool. Like, it looked like, oh, he's angry. There's some anger at Godzilla. I like this. What's also kind of interesting too, Game of Thrones, I thought the most boring thing about that show was the White Walkers. I really did. And because to me, they were just, okay, that's zombies. I'm more interested in, and this may be sacrilege for Song of Ice and Fire book fans. I'm just telling you, as a non-book reader of the series and seeing the show, I just did not like the White Walkers very much, because I found it much more interesting seeing Joffrey kind of torturing people and how was he going to get what he deserved and all that. And like Lady Olenna scheming with Marjorie, those kinds of things were just more interesting to me. Robb Stark and his rebellion. However, once the White Walker plot started to really like kick into gear with Jon Snow having this kind of personal nemesis with the Night King, and then the whole plot of like Jon Snow having to go against his own people to like rally and get the word out, some of that started to get pretty interesting. And I started to really enjoy a lot of that. Unfortunately, season 8 happened, and we all know what went down there. But there was one element of the White Walkers I thought was pretty good, which was they represented this concept of the Godzilla, the alien invasion, the apocalyptic pandemic. They are humans running up against something far bigger than we are. Something far more vast and terrifying than we are. And that is the humans' hero's journey, is like the human species comes up against the thing which puts into perspective where we really fit in the grand universe of things. In fact, let me just find this really quickly. Okay. So I think this would be a good image. Yeah, here we go. Let me see if I can just, okay, here we go. Let me share my screen. So you've probably seen this before. The pale blue dot. Actually, let me share this one instead. This is good. So the Voyager probe, which is the farthest man-made object from Earth, which we sent out in the 70s and traveled the whole solar system, and now it's hurtling out there into space at a rate of about 1 million miles a day. Right about the time it reached Saturn, Carl Sagan persuaded NASA to to turn the camera back and take a picture of Earth from, I forget how many million miles away this is. This is how many miles away? I wish it was something like 7 million miles. I just kind of from memory, it's something like 7 million miles away. Okay. So this is the picture of Earth that the Voyager probe took from about where Saturn is from the Earth. And if you look closely, that little pale blue dot, that's Earth. That's Earth. Now, that just puts into perspective how tiny we are. All of human existence, every king, every emperor, every nation that's ever lived or died has lived on that tiny little dot. And that is why Godzilla is such a compelling story, because it tells a kind of primal truth, which is that we are not as big a deal as we think we are. And there you have it. And I love Carl Sagan's quote on that too. Consider again that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you've ever heard of, every human being who ever was lived out their lives. The aggregate of all our joys and sufferings, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilizations, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every supreme leader, every superstar, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. There you go. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. There you go. It's a really, I just love that. Carl Sagan, rest in peace. And that is why Godzilla is such a great story. It's like every time. I love it. I love it. It's just a great story. So Godzilla minus U1. There you go. Melodic says, my nieces did Odyssey of the Mind for several years. Can't recall if they won anything. So they must, yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Obligatory ship chase scene. Yes. In every Godzilla. Old Man Nixon says, welcome. Old Man Nixon says, it's a prequel, is my guess. Yeah, I'm thinking that's why the -1 title. It's Godzilla prequel. I mean, listen, I always would rather see a really good Japanese version of Godzilla than an American version, because unsurprisingly, I think the origin of the story being in Japan and Japanese culture and artistic perspective, I think they do a better job. They understand the character better. And, you know, the Monarch universe has done a really good homage to the character, but I still think the OG Godzilla is the Japanese interpretation, presentation of the character. And that's pretty good. Like, I really liked, what was the name of the other Godzilla film that came out recently? It was super creepy and dark. What the hell was it? It's like, maybe it was just, no, it wasn't just Godzilla. It was like one of the more recent ones. No, it wasn't that one. Shin Godzilla. That was the name of it. Shin Godzilla. That was a really good one. And he was like this creepy monster metamorphizing in it. Yeah. So could be really, I'm excited. I'll watch that one. Melodic says, I also wonder if Godzilla is the shadow of the Japanese imperial mindset and the damage it did. Absolutely. I mean, really, it's a metaphor for all kind of empires. You know, it's like the famous Ozymandias, you know, look upon my works and despair. And of course, it's the traveler has found the fallen statue of Ozymandias. Like, that's just a tale as old as time, because we humans love to build empires. We do, and we always will. We will always want to build empires of various different kinds. And part of the reason for building an empire is immortality. And it gets us into a lot of trouble. It gets us into a lot of trouble. All those empires we try to build. And dynasties rise, dynasties fall. I like that. I like that interpretation, Melodic. I think, it's incredible how much it's incredible how self-destructive it was for, the Imperial Japan to build an empire, for Germany to try to build empires, for Britain to spend so long trying to maintain an empire, for, I think about like Italy in World War II. That was a truly disastrous attempt at empire. Like it's a part of human hubris, I think, that we try to build empires. What we should do is try to build consensus, not enforce it, build it. But most humans are less interested in getting to consensus. They're more interested in kind of just, building empires. I don't know if that's true. The modern Japanese culture, I think they're pretty well cured of their desire for empire. I really do. I don't think they have much interest in that anymore. And in theory, in Western civilization, neither do we have interest in empire. But unfortunately, I think what's happened is, I think the United States has turned into a kind of unofficial empire. And I think that is part of our current problem, is that a large segment of us have woken up to this fact that, like, hey, why are we running an empire? We need to stop being an empire, because it's turning us into what empires turn into, which is self-destructive machines that wind up, causing more problems than they solve. And I think that what's happening is the imperialistic crowd in both parties, really, the imperialistic crowd are holding on for dear life. They are holding on for dear life. That's really why, that's really why they hate the Orange Man, because he was starting to dismantle the American imperial machine. He was starting to dismantle it. And the imperialistic types do not like that. So, but this is not a political show. When I have the spare time, I plan to have a more political channel, but for now, we'll just keep it to entertainment here. But there's nothing wrong with observing. Imperialism is the subject of much fiction. So if we hadn't dropped nukes, we wouldn't have Godzilla. I mean, I love Oppenheimer. I love this movie, and I think that most of it was dead on what it should be, which is this meditation on the meaning of nuclear power. And I am obsessed and fascinated by the whole anything nuclear. It's just nuclear warfare, nuclear power, just like the consequences of it. It's something that I've always had a huge fascination with since I was a kid. And because naturally it is the real life Godzilla. I mean, let's just face it. Nuclear weapons are the real life Godzilla. They are what we're really thinking about when we see Godzilla trashing a city. He is a metaphor for that, which is a monster, a sleeping monster we're all sitting on top of. We are sitting on a sleeping monster that is always got, that is just barely asleep. And if we wake that sucker up, we are in deep shit. And that's kind of what I think. That's what I tend to think Oppenheimer is a bit of a meditation on, is like, okay, these weapons spared us the rest of this, this bloody war continuing, but at what cost? And I'm not litigating whether or not we should have dropped the bombs. That's not my point. My point is, regardless of whether it was justifiable, moral, or whatever, the consequences are the consequences, which is the genie's out of the bottle. And that's the real issue. And that's what I like so much about that conversation between Oppenheimer and Einstein. That was so, this is really where Nolan is succeeding. I say it's Nolan versus Nolan because Nolan is so brilliant that he gets in his own way. He's so brilliant. He's so ambitious as a filmmaker that he also gets in his own way as a filmmaker. But like, one of the brilliant elements of Nolan's nonlinear storytelling is, if he had just told Oppenheimer's story linearly, you would not have the brilliant payoff that you have at the end of the film, which is, and this is the one element of the Strauss storyline I really like, which is you see in the beginning of the film, you see Strauss watching Oppenheimer speaking to Einstein, but you don't hear their conversation. And then when Strauss arrives, Einstein is walking away. And from that point on, for whatever reason, Strauss believes that Einstein doesn't like him. So he gets it in his head that Oppenheimer said something to Einstein that poisoned Einstein against him. And it becomes the seeds of really the entire resentment that Strauss has for why he hates Oppenheimer and wants to destroy him. Okay, so that's in the beginning of the film. Then it becomes an obsession of Strauss to find out what the hell was it Oppenheimer said. What did you say? What did you say to Einstein? Well, then this becomes the audience's obsession because now we're all curious. Well, okay, what did Oppenheimer say? And so then they finally reveal, because we did hear one conversation where Oppenheimer is asking Einstein about, hey, do you think if we set this thing off, could it ignite the atmosphere and destroy the world? And Einstein believes, no, it's very, very unlikely that will happen. And which is true. That's a true historical fact that they were afraid they were going to ignite the Earth's atmosphere. And they blew it up anyway. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you about us humans? Well, it's a non-zero chance that we ignite the world and we all die. But fuck it. Let's just try it. So then they get to the end of the film and they reveal the second conversation is Oppenheimer basically saying to Einstein, remember when we discussed the possibility of setting off a chain reaction that could destroy the world? Well, I think we did. And it had nothing to do with Strauss, which is another beautiful reveal of the film. But it's like that non-linear placement of that answer at the very end of the film is one of the best payoff. It's one of the best parts of the whole movie, I think, is that beautiful payoff at the end. And then you see like this image of all the missiles going up. Oh, it just gives me chills. And I just think, yeah. What was the captain's point? Well, the captain's point is I love stories that are a meditation on that. And Godzilla is a meditation on that in so many different ways. Our damage to the environment, our self-destructive nature, our kind of hubris and arrogance, thinking we're above nature and no longer a part of it, et cetera, et cetera. Fu Man Blue says, our government is just an extension of corporate interests. Well, when we have the captain's equivalent, the captain's political cast, we could get into it. Look, humans build empires, corporate empires, artistic empires, political empires, and those empires are at varying levels of alliance and enmity. And so, Bob Iger he's an empire builder. He wants to build an empire. He doesn't care. He doesn't actually care about the stories. I don't think he gives he may have a certain level of like, oh yeah, sure, I want Pixar to be a household name, fine. But does he really give a shit about Luke Skywalker and Leia and all? No. He might watch the movies and enjoy them. I don't know. That's possible. But does he have the passion that we have where, it matters to us whether Han shot first? Like, that's a big deal to a nerd. Like, we care. And by the way, it's a big deal to me. In fact, I don't even consider that a nerd thing. That's just a storytelling thing. Han shooting first is a fundamental element of who his character is. So if he didn't shoot first, it changes the character. So I'm not to open that can of worms. My point is, do you think Bob Iger gives a shit about stuff like that? No. Bob Iger cares about his legacy. And so to the extent that his interests are in line with the interests of the state, he will go in that direction. But if he feels the state is going against the interests of his empire, he'll go against, such as in the case of Florida. Bob Iger, his corporate interests were not the corporate interests of Disney were at odds with the government of Florida. So I don't think it's fair to say that that's always the case, that corporate interests are an extension of government interests. It depends. It depends. But they certainly wield a lot of power, and they certainly have reasons to form alliances. I definitely think that's true. Melodic says, don't get me started on politics. We would have a good, fun time. The purpose of the Swords and Starships channel is hopefully to be a channel focused on entertainment. But I did set up another channel called Banner Yet Waves, which in theory might be the captain's political channel someday. But the thing though is I am very much a fan of upbeat political channels. I don't watch a lot of political channels anymore because I'm tired of just the drama. I'm just tired of would you like to hear the worst awful thing that happened today? Stealing another one of your freedoms? Oh, sure. I'd love to hear that. It's like, no, what I like to listen to is I like to listen to white pill channels. Like I've been listening to Steve Turley. I like him a lot because he's kind of a white pill. By the way, all political views are welcome in Swords and Starships channel, and stories produced by the Swords and Starships studios will never say to any fan of any walk of life or political persuasion that you are not welcome as a fan. That would never happen. And the stories I tell will always be aimed at, number one, entertaining the audience, not preaching to them, not lecturing them about anything, simply presenting a story and letting them decide what they think, presenting characters that are true to their character journeys and letting them decide what they think about those characters. And number two, artistic integrity. The story comes first. I would never write a story and just have it be my propaganda of my worldview. Now, are my stories going to be influenced by my worldview? Of course they would be. But it's funny. I would actually quite enjoy if I could find like someone I trusted who was like a co-writer that had different political views. I would be fine with that. I would actually quite enjoy that, of like having that push and pull of like of presenting, because I think that's just more interesting. I often say that like the stories I like the most are the ones where multiple views are being portrayed and the characters are wrestling with them and there's no easy answer. That's my favorite kind of a story. So obviously Blood and Oak deals a lot with issues of like slavery, ideals of the American Revolution, and the Barbary Pirates and their kind of attitudes about slavery, human chattel slavery based on religious views. But I always looked at it as I want to give every faction in the story should not be just a cardboard cutout of what I think they are. It should be that there is nuance and complexity to every faction. Every person's worldview should have a little nuance and complexity to it. So I enjoy that. I like Benny. Benny is mostly a white pill, so I enjoy Benny a lot. But I also like podcasters that have people on that disagree with them. I think that's super interesting also. Yeah. Melodic says, I can't stand the commentaries about everything that's super sensationalized. Well, you got to get clicks and likes, but at the same time, it's like we also got to have happiness. We need happiness. One of the things I loved about The Conjuring, ironically enough, is I liked the happy ending. I did. I liked the fact that Ed and Lorraine win in the end, and that they sort of are great people that deserve to win, and they help these families. Like, dude, I really like that. It was kind of uplifting, this whole, they really lean into evil is real and there's a battle between good and evil, and you got to fight that good fight. Like, it's super, super interesting lore building in those movies. And I'll tell you, that's the way to do kind of like a film franchise universe, like building on those carefully placed bits of lore. Like, that's so well done. But I just like that there's this uplifting message in these movies about, good triumphing over evil. Not easily, though. Like, I really like that Ed and Lorraine, there's a clear cost that they pay for what they do. I love that. I think that is a brilliant. There are moments in, like, just every once in a while, there's like a moment when they'll say a line and it'll be like, oh, that's a little campy. But I'm kind of okay with it because I'm like, I'm just so done with Look, I can watch The Boys and Gen V. I'm tired. I'm tired of every single story being about how nothing matters. No, no matter what you do, humans are pieces of shit and always will be. I'm just tired of that. I'm tired of that story. So I'm okay with seeing a creepy, terrifying story about demonic possession that also has a happy ending where good prevails over evil. I really like that. So, not saying every horror movie's got to be that. Of course not. But, is it that time already? Did everyone remember to set their clocks back? I sure didn't. Siri does that for me now. I have surrendered to Siri. Siri now runs my life. So, by the way, Fu Man Blue, I did watch a little bit of Stargate. I watched 2 episodes of Stargate, as a matter of fact. Where's my Stargate banner? There it is. Just some real quick Stargate talk for you. So I watched the episode. What was the name of the episode? Touchstones. So season 2, they go to a planet where they have this device called the Touchstone. And the Touchstone is basically a weather modification device. It allows them to set whatever weather they want on this planet. And the idea is basically the planet was terraformed with this device. And if you remove the device, you remove the terraforming and the planet reverts to its natural state and becomes a hellhole. Well, the Stargate team go to kind of ask the locals more questions about this technology because we want to learn this technology. Well, they find out that it's been stolen. And the locals think that the humans stole it. And they're really pissed. They're really pissed at the Stargate team. And Colonel O'Neill's like, no, we didn't steal it. No. And they convince him, okay, let us go find it and we'll bring it back to you. You're liars. We don't trust you. Well, let us just try and we'll prove it to you. So the story becomes they have to go find the thieves, right? But they can't figure out who could have stolen it. And then there's this line in the show where they mention, well, we do have that secondary Stargate that we found in Antarctica. It could be that someone used that one to go through and steal it. And there's this whole shadowy conspiracy theory about like there's elements of the government that are hiding things from General Hammond and the Stargate team. Could be civilians, could be like a CIA or FBI. We don't really know, but they're using the Stargate. And so chicanery's going on. Well, it just so happened that when I heard that line about the Antarctic gate, I was like, wait a minute. This is the first I'm hearing of this. I don't remember hearing about an Antarctica second Stargate. And I'm like, I watched pretty much every episode. How did I miss this one? And sure enough, there was one episode in season 1 that I skipped called Solitudes. That was the episode where they find the Antarctic gate. I'm like, well, shit. So I paused in the middle, went back to that episode. And it's a really cool idea. They're trying to go through the Stargate to get back to Earth, and there's a malfunction, an energy surge. Well, on their way back to the home Stargate, they get the Stargate system automatically reroutes them to the nearest gate. Unbeknownst to the Stargate program, there's a second Stargate on Earth that's buried in Antarctica that was undiscovered, and Colonel O'Neill and Captain Carter get thrown through that gate. But they can't get back. And so the whole story becomes a sort of surviving in a glacier. They're in a glacial cave, freezing to death. And Colonel Jack O'Neill's got a broken rib, internal bleeding. He's dying. And they got to figure out a way to get him back before he dies. It was a really great episode. I was like, damn it, I skipped one of the best episodes. I love a good military survival story. It's been an honor serving with you, sir. The honor was mine. It was pretty good. It was a great episode for Sam Carter. Great episode for Colonel O'Neill. Wonderful character development. So yeah, isn't Solitude the one where Sam uses the term MacGyver to Jack? I don't think I caught that. Maybe she did. I don't think I caught her saying a MacGyver, but you let me know if you find where that is, because I would love that. Wait, let me go. Okay, so there you go. We got some good. Got some quick Stargate. I just had to let you know about that, Fu Man Blue. I saw it. So I'm still watching it. We're still going through Stargate. And I'm starting on Doctor Who. And I might do Buffy. I don't know. Maybe this will just turn into a retro TV channel. Maybe. why don't we close it out with a couple of thoughts on the South Park Panderverse? Okay, so Critical Drinker. Should I do Paul Chatto first? I'm going to do Paul Chatto's first. And all these are linked in the description, by the way. Pretty much all the videos I showed today are linked in the description. Hang on one second. All right, here we go. So hat tip Paul Chato. I really liked his take on the South Park joining the Panderverse. I thought he made some really interesting points. So hat tip Paul Chato. Link is in the description. Give him a like, give him a follow. Excellent YouTuber.
Denizens of the internet.
And by the way, he kind of brings a little bit more of a liberal perspective to a lot of these conversations, because everyone says, you know, our over on our corner of the internet, the fellowship is it's an echo chamber. It's not. Paul Chato tends to have a more liberal view on things, but he's based AF.
My turn to weigh in on South Park's Panderverse special. There will be spoilers. In contrast to all the gushing over this episode, I thought it missed the mark and was a bit too inside baseball. For those of you who have been salivating, waiting for this evisceration of the much hated Disney, this wasn't it. Frankly, it amounted to a mild rebuke. Far better, funnier dissections are available right here on YouTube that predate this effort by years. The four things this episode is sending up are those who graduated from a white-collar, non-trades-oriented school are not handy and incapable of fixing everyday things in life, and soon must compete for the services of handymen. The second item is the diversity casting virus gripping the entertainment business, mixed with a parody of Marvel's over-reliance on multiverses. And finally, the massive ongoing failure at Disney corporate. All four of these things cross over in places like any good multiverse mass of confusion does. Putting aside the handyman segment, the main story features Cartman switching places with his black female doppelganger from the Panderverse and trying to find a way back while running away from Kathleen Kennedy, who apparently is stalking him. The show opens with Stan, Kyle, Kenny, and Eric at the school bus stop, except they have been race and gender swapped. Kenny is now a lesbian. This would have been a scathing indictment of the whole diversity insanity, except I really liked these four women. Thought the characters were funnier than the OGs. Trey and Matt really missed a key element of the gender swapping shenanigans. It's mandatory that the women be dour and homely, like a compost heap. These women were, well, frankly, super attractive as far as South Park goes. Maybe that was their intention. The lesson here is, if you're going to substitute men with lesbians and you want it to be successful, at least make them hot lesbians. Of course.
Dude, he makes such a good point there. I don't totally agree with him that they totally missed the mark. I think that they definitely took down how lazy Disney executives are and how lazy, Kathleen Kennedy and people like her are. Like that, they absolutely skewered and nailed. What I do think is interesting, though, he points out that the problem is that they made all the women actually look kind of attractive and interesting and actually have personality. I'm like, exactly. He's actually right that that's actually not what they typically do in these diverse it's like Ahsoka. They managed to make all of those women as absolutely boring and just blocks of wood. And it's like he's saying that Matt and Stone and Trey Parker still made them kind of sexy and interesting.
Of course, it's Cartman having a nightmare. He asks his mom to look under the bed to see if Kathleen Kennedy is there. Now, my very first thought was, how many normies out there have a friggin' clue who Kathleen Kennedy is? Hollywood knows who she is. YouTubers weekly demanding her head know who she is. It's not scathing comedy if the subject of your ire is generally unknown. It's fun to make fun of Kennedy here in our tiny echo chamber, but on a mass market property, weird. The next scene starts the...
So that's pretty much as far as I'll go. Check out the rest of his video. It's a pretty good take on it. I just thought those first 2 points he makes were really interesting because that was, he's right about the fact that how can you make this a super interesting takedown if most normies are not going to have any clue like who the hell Kathleen Kennedy is? So he is kind of right about that. At the same time, I don't know if normies are as clueless as he thinks they are, though, because it's gotten to the point where Disney's... Look, so many audiences have walked away. I think people watching this episode can kind of figure it out. Like, even if they don't know exactly who Kathleen is, they know that she's the one in charge of this. And South Park has been doing this for years. Like, they've done this for years with making fun of executives at companies. And I even said last time on the stream, they tend to make fun of things that people in Los Angeles are more focused on than, say, the rest of the world. So I take his point and I find it interesting. At the same time, I'm not in 100% agreement, but I still find it a really interesting argument that he makes about it. Like their mistake was they didn't quite nail what the diversity casting actually does, which is deliberately try to make the characters dour and uninteresting. And also that it's kind of inside baseball, and would normies even get it? But maybe that's the point. I mean, maybe that they're just firing a shot at the industry, which they love to do. Like when they wore dresses to the Oscars, which now, what's funny is they wore dresses to the Oscars, Matt Stone, Trey Parker, and it was this big scandal and all the celebrities were pissed about it. If they did that now, they'd be like, what? We identify as this, like we're heroes. So then Critical Drinker had a pretty good take on it. And I thought I would play that. So hat tip Critical Drinker.
The more I realize that life really is a matter of perspective. I mean, if you think you've been having a bad week, if you're feeling overwhelmed by failures, worries, or embarrassing mockery from the people around you, then just keep in mind that it could always be worse. For example, you could be Bob Iger or Kathleen Kennedy. It's no secret that people like them have come in for a fair bit of criticism over the years for their embarrassing mismanagement of the brands and studios under their control, their shameless pandering to identity politics, and their gradual alienation of their own customers. But most of that criticism has been confined to social media and YouTube. It's not very often that mainstream outlets, much less people in their own industry, felt brave enough to call them out. All of that changed a few days ago, though, with the release of Joining the Panderverse, a South Park special that tackles issues like Disney's token diversity pandering, fan backlash, the lazy overuse of multiverses as a plot device, and even AI in the way that only Trey Parker and Matt Stone possibly can. And holy shit, did it ignite a firestorm online. Other people have reviewed the episode far better than I can, so I'll skip the detailed plot synopsis, and I absolutely won't be using video because they seem to be clamping down hard on that shit for some reason. But the basic gist is that Cartman gets transported into another universe where he and his friends are all played by strong, diverse women of various races. Meanwhile, the Cartman from that universe gets transported into our world with much hilarity, especially from PC Principal, who tries to gaslight the other boys into believing there's nothing weird about someone they've known their whole lives suddenly showing up as a completely different race and gender. It's a perfect satire on the tired old, it's no big deal, why'd you have a problem with it, bro, argument, and it's neatly countered by the boys pointing out that they've got no issue whatsoever with a character like Miles Morales, who was created with his own unique personality and backstory instead of just being a lazy race swap of an existing character, hammering home the simple but often misunderstood point that well-written characters who happen to be diverse are a perfectly good thing that no reasonable person can object to, whereas diverse characters created for the sole purpose of being diverse are not. There's also a neat little subplot about all the handymen in South Park becoming insanely rich because everyone else invested their time and money in useless college degrees to the point where they can't actually fix or do anything for themselves now, and their jobs are all being slowly replaced by AI. Again, a nice satire of the current state of modern culture, where people are racking up insane debts to get degrees they don't really need for jobs that are becoming obsolete anyway. But the real meat of the episode is the storyline between Cartman and Kathleen Kennedy, where we find out that Cartman's constant complaining about Star Wars eventually caused her to turn to the Panderstone, a magical device that allowed Disney to keep making the same shit movies over and over for decades, but still be massively successful. Again, a pretty biting observation about the real Disney. Although, let's be honest here, I think Marvel were the biggest beneficiary out of that one. The more Kennedy relied on the Panderstone rather than doing actual creative work to make good movies, the more it became corrupted and eventually opened a portal to another universe, allowing an evil version of Kennedy to come through with all her worst personality traits dialed up to 11 and lay waste to Disney's movies. As with most stuff that South Park does, the whole storyline actually provides a fairly balanced perspective on a highly divisive issue. And despite what you might have heard, the Kennedy from our universe is generally portrayed sympathetically as a well-meaning but slightly disconnected Hollywood executive who wants to make a positive difference to the world but lacks the creativity and dedication to actually get it done, and instead finds herself constantly reacting to other people's criticism, ultimately turning to a quick, lazy solution in the form of the Panderstone. But the thing is, the only reason she does it in the first place is because of Cartman's constant whining and nitpicking about everything that she produces. Clearly the writers are taking aim at toxic fans who find reasons to complain about absolutely everything, and the evil Kathleen Kennedy from another dimension is a pretty smart parody of the monstrous, franchise-devouring being that a lot of people have created in their minds that probably has little or no connection to the mundane reality of the real Kathleen Kennedy. And to be honest, I'm perfectly fine with that. Believe it or not, it's possible to acknowledge that there's a lot of assholes out there who are basically impossible to please, but also that lazy appeals to social justice and identity politics isn't going to silence them. If anything, it's just going to give them more ammunition to criticize you with. Like I say, it's a classic example of South Park.
So that's pretty much it. Check out the rest of his video, but links are in the description for those videos as well. I thought that was a pretty interesting take. You know, he points out that they made fun of both sides, and there is truth to that. That, like, you know, I think the prequel backlash is probably the best example of this, because for years George Lucas took so much shit for the prequels, and some of it deservedly so, because like some of the choices he made were not great. However, you know, it reaches, I think that there is the ability that we have as fans to acknowledge, yeah, okay, maybe we're nitpicking George just a little bit. It's like, the problem is, you know, I do think there is a power imbalance. You know, these corporations, they own the property. You know, fans are not gatekeepers. We don't keep the gates on any of this stuff. They can do whatever they want to these characters. And I think that that's where maybe I slightly disagree with Drinker a little bit on how reasonable that argument is, because my issue is, you know, the proportion of fans' rage, I think, is directly proportional to A, how little power they have to actually do anything, and B, how much actual vitriol that the owners of these franchises seem to direct at them. And I think that's the real issue. It's like you know, for Kathleen Kennedy to say, well, gee, you know, you just were being so mean and nasty to me. It's like, look, you have all the power here. And when you have all that power, and then your response to criticism is, well, screw you, watch what I do next, you better believe that the fans are going to be angry. And so I guess what I'm saying is I don't consider it an equal relationship. I think that fans are passionate, and fans, you know, it's very painful. I think it's very painful for you're never going to please everyone, but it is painful to see a character like Luke Skywalker destroyed. It's very painful to see a character like Captain Picard humiliated and just elder abused, and to see his world kind of ripped down in that kind of dark dystopian world they put him in Picard season 1 and 2. It's nothing I can do about that. It's nothing any fan can do about that. You bought it, you own it. the corporations, that is. And you're right. You can do whatever you want with these characters. And if you think it's right, you can do that. What can we fans do? Well, we can be pissed, damn it. And we will be. So I think the burden of proof, the burden of the larger share of respect, I think, is on the owners of these IPs. It's on the creatives. It's on the professionals. And the professional mindset is to understand there's a difference between your identity and the work being criticized is part of being a professional. It's just part of being a professional. So I think that Matt Stone and Trey Parker, I greatly admire them, but I think they've spent so long in that Los Angeles fishbowl that they tend to have a little too much sympathy for these incredibly, vastly powerful and highly paid executives that have almost limitless fortunes to not only execute a vision, but then to market that vision, and then to use that power and their connections to silence fans, remove dislike buttons, censor articles, browbeat and bully people on social media, all those powers which they have used. I'm sorry, I don't have sympathy for those professionals taking heat, because if they are going to be petty about it, then they're not professionals. And it could be the reason why everything they make is garbage. So yes, shout out Chato, shout out Drinker. Those are my thoughts on it. And Fu Man Blue says they did describe that they had Cartman make them say gay and lame. Yeah, that's true. Go away now. I love the Drinker. You know, if it weren't for the Drinker, this channel wouldn't even be here, because he was the beginning of my my journey into all this. So, all right. Well, we've had a great stream, my dear sailors and starnuts. We've had so much fun. I enjoy being with you here on a Sunday, and I hope I provided you some entertainment, set you up for a great, amazing week. We're going to have so much fun. So, more videos in the works. I'm working on more stuff, and it's been good hanging out with you. Anything I missed, Fu Man Blue? We even got some Stargate talk. What do you think of that? All right. Well, it has been good spending time with you on a Sunday. I am Captain Garrett. This is the Captain's Cast here on the Swords and Starships channel. Our continuing mission to explore strange new nerd entertainment worlds and to have fun. Our mission is to be happy and have fun on the Captain's Cast. And until next time, Fu Man Blue says, I'm disembarking this bitch now, Captain. Good night. Okay, I was waiting for you to get your last word in there, Fu Man Blue. Good night, Tom. Good night. And until next time, this is Captain Garrett saying, I will see you out there.